Chapter 518. Ji-Jin was startled and shook his head. That one is even worse. He's far from being qualified to enter the inner sect. I'm sorry, Guardian Sima. Sect Master, you're exaggerating. I'm just doing my best. Sima, she smiled, not surprised. Many young talents in the Yinling Prefecture wanted to enter the inner sect of the Fierce Yin School. Every year, the number of candidates was extremely high. Liu family and Fong family, the overlords of Green Smoke City, paled in comparison to the Fierce Yin School. After all, the Fierce Yin School was one of the top transcendent existences in the Yinling Mansion. It could be said to be a tripartite balance of forces with the Yinling Mansion and the Chiyue Palace. It was slightly superior to the Chiyue Palace and was only slightly inferior to the Yinling Mansion. It governed 15 cities to the south of the Yinling Prefecture. Every city of the Fierce Yin School was much better than the Green Smoke City. In fact, the area where the Green Smoke City was located was a collection of small cities. Unlike the Fierce Yin School, both of them were giants. Every year, the number of disciples joining the Fierce Yin School exceeded the total number of disciples from all the sects in the Green Smoke City. Ji-Jin's gaze fell on the light screen. Looking at Lin Feng, he said indifferently, his battle performance is no worse than the inner sect disciples. Unfortunately, he's not at the Star Sea level. Otherwise, he's barely qualified to enter the inner sect. Battle performance was very important. Some warriors could use 100% or even 120% of their strength. However, for most martial artists, being able to display 80% of their strength was already considered pretty good. Sima, she smiled and said, his name is Lin Feng. Sect Master, before I left, this little guy had already broken through to the Star Sea level. Ji-Jin nodded, not minding it at all. In his opinion, Lin Feng was barely qualified to become a candidate for inner disciple. There were too many of such seedlings in Fierce Yin School every year. With his status, he naturally had no time to care about such matters. He smiled indifferently. Sir, aren't you being too much of a bully by participating in such a small martial competition? Sima, she smiled. Xia won the championship. Qian won the second place. Ji-Jin smiled faintly. This was within his expectations. However, after the martial arts competition, Sir and Lin Feng fought privately and lost. Sima, she said casually. Xia lost him. Ji-Jin frowned and pointed at the light screen. Yes, Sect Master. Xia was defeated by a single move in the sparring match. Sima, she said honestly, looking at Lin Feng's figure on the light screen, his eyes twinkling. In terms of strength, this little guy isn't as good as Xia. However, his intuition and ability to use his strength in battle are exquisite, which is quite shocking. Even so, there's no way he can defeat Xia, right? Ji-Jin was stunned. Among the younger generation disciples of his age, Xia was ranked in the top 10 of the Fierce Yin School. Xia's indigo pupils were damaged and have yet to recover. Sima, she shook his head. Otherwise, no matter how strong this Lin Feng is, it would be impossible for him to win. So that was how it was. Ji-Jin nodded in understanding. Without the indigo light pupil, Xia was like a little bird with broken wings. He could only display 20 to 30% of his strength. But even so, it was still too shocking. When he defeated Xia, he had just broken through to the Star Sea level and had yet to comprehend astral force. Ji-Jin's eyes deepened. Yes, Sima Ji nodded. Ji-Jin's eyes flashed as he pondered. He had just broken through to the Star Sea level and had yet to comprehend astral force. Yet he could defeat Xia, who was a level 4-star sea level with 3rd grade astral force control. This Lin Feng was not simple. Have you tried to recruit him, Protector Sima? Ji-Jin asked. Yes, but he's still hesitating and hasn't made a decision, Sima Ji said truthfully. Oh, Ji-Jin smiled. He doesn't even like the inner sect of the Fierce Yin School. This little guy called Lin Feng, interesting. Chaotic Swamp. After completely entering the Purple Swamp, Wei Hai was nervous and cautious. If he was alone and entered with a level 2 cosmic sea state power, it would be a suicide mission. This place was too dangerous. There were endless mutated beasts, and even all kinds of aggressive wood spirits. Wei Hai's nerves were tense, and a chill ran down his spine. He still remembered the dangerous scene just now. He was almost swallowed by a pitcher plant. Fortunately, Lin Feng came in time. Otherwise, he would have died too unjustly. The purple swamp is really scary. I wonder what the deepest part of the red swamp will be like. Wei Hai was curious. The deepest part of the chaotic swamp was the red swamp. Only martial artists above the Star Lord level could enter. With his strength, there was no hope for him in this lifetime. Remember the terrain. I hope I can enter the purple swamp again one day. Wei Hai nodded. This time, he had Lin Feng leading the way, but there would be no next time. However, this was undoubtedly a rare experience. Even if he didn't have the strength to enter, he could draw a map. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, there would be outstanding juniors in the sect who could enter. Wasn't this also an opportunity? However, this place seems to be the same as the purple swamp recorded in the sect's books. It's not the same. Wei Hai frowned and felt it was slightly strange. The wood spirits here weren't docile. Instead, they were very violent. They were even more aggressive than mutated beasts. In less than half a year, this place has become like this. Lin Feng's eyes glittered as he thought to himself. Even he did not expect that such a drastic change would occur in this place. The air was filled with an uncomfortable aura of death. Compared to the last time he entered, the swamp was even more barren and abandoned. It was a feeling that it lacked vitality. Not only did the demonic beasts mutate, but the wood spirits also mutated. What exactly caused this? Lin Feng pondered, but couldn't find an answer. He picked up the white insect egg on the ground. It was left behind by a mutated demonic beast. It was slightly bigger than the white insect egg from the ant tide and had more energy. He had already picked up a lot of them along the way. Keep it first, Lin Feng said. He put away the white insect egg. These little things were great tonics and excellent food for Wing. However, Wing was already full and didn't need them for the time being. I think the answer should be in the deepest part of the red swamp. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He thought of the strange hurricane that swept them into the red swamp. It was as if there was a pair of invisible hands pushing and helping. It was as if they were telling him that the source was in the deepest part of the chaotic swamp. However, it's too dangerous. Although danger and opportunity coexist, with my current strength, I'm afraid I'm still a long way from entering the red swamp. Lin Feng nodded. Although he was confident, he wasn't blind. As far as he knew, the red swamp was extremely dangerous. Only those who had reached the Star Lord level were barely qualified to enter. Right now, with all kinds of wood spirits and demonic beasts mutating, and even mutated beasts born from the energy of heaven and earth becoming violent, the danger level of the purple swamp had more than doubled. It was easy to guess how dangerous the red swamp was at this moment. It was definitely not something he could peek at now. I'll enter when I have the chance, Lin Feng thought with a determined expression. For him, the most important thing now was to find that hole and the place with spirit Qi. After sending Xian Air, Qi Yang, and Qiyu safely back to the Fengyang Valley, he would have completed his mission. As for the rest, it was useless to think too much now. He could only take one step at a time and think about it in the future. Going with the flow, many things cannot be forced. Time passed day by day. Although the terrain had changed greatly, the entire purple swamp seemed to have mutated like those demonic beasts. However, Lin Feng still walked along the edge of the swamp and found the right path. No matter how the terrain changed, the swamp would not move. Following this line, soon, Lin Feng came to a familiar place. Looking at the huge dilapidated tents in front of him, Wei Hai's expression changed drastically. The settlement of the Gomong wizard tribe. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked around. Seeing Wei Hai's shocked expression, he couldn't help but add with a smile, once. It was indeed once, because the valley in front of him was already barren. There was no aura. Only the tents were left. The totems of the Gomong wizard tribe were vaguely engraved on them. However, there was not a single living Gomong wizard tribe member. Where did they go? Wei Hai asked in a daze. I don't know either. Lin Feng shook his head. His gaze was deep. Maybe they went to the Red Swamp. This place was completely different from the last time he came. It was exactly the same as the dead silence that the entire Purple Swamp revealed. The settlement of the Gomong wizard tribe no longer had abundant spirit energy. It was like a deserted city. The deterioration of the environment forced the Gomong wizard tribe to change. The mastermind behind, it was him. Sure enough, as expected. This time, I didn't have to put in any effort. Lin Feng smiled. Before he came, he was already prepared to fight with the Gomong wizard tribe. However, it would be best if he could save some effort. The wizard tribe also needed to cultivate. Compared to humans, they were more dependent on the environment. Sufficient spirit energy of heaven and earth could allow the wizard tribe's strength to increase rapidly. However, there was no spirit energy here. The irrigation was no longer magical. It was only a matter of time before the Gomong wizard tribe left. However, his luck was not bad. Looking at the ruins of the wizard tribe, Lin Feng's eyes were a little dazed. He could still remember the battle that day clearly. Thinking about it, he was in a sorry state. Fortunately, he had the life-saving technique, Wind Escape. Otherwise, he would have been torn to pieces by the angry Gomong wizard tribe. The price was that the Wind Escape was temporarily in a state of deep sleep. It was similar to his starry sky eyes. It had consumed too much energy and had yet to awaken. If I fight again with my current strength, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. However, he shook his head with a bitter smile. Perhaps he could win one-on-one. However, he did not have the strength to fight 200. After all, the wizard tribe was extraordinarily powerful. When Lin Feng saw Wei Hai touching the tent and the totem like a child, Lin Feng smiled faintly and was about to say something. Suddenly, the heartbeat that he had not heard for a long time was heard again. Lin Feng's expression changed. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 519. It was so familiar. It was exactly the same. No, it was even clearer, much clearer. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he pressed his right hand to his chest. The Lich's heart that had been silent for a long time started beating again, filled with an intense life force. It's here again. Lin Feng instantly immersed himself in the Lich's heart and entered a magical world. The scene not far away was extremely clear. Its huge wings were striking, and its entire body was dark green. It had a bird's body and a human's face. Its thin face was filled with ferocity, and its 10-meter-tall aura was extremely powerful. The Gomong Shaman Tribe. It's the leader of the Gomong Shaman Tribe that I met that day. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he stared into the distance. He still could not sense the aura, but the Lich's heart was already warning him. Furthermore, it was completely different from the blurry feeling he had before. Ever since he absorbed the huge drop of blood from the Gomong Shaman Tribe's stone sculpture, the Lich's heart had undergone a mutation. Lin Feng remembered very clearly that when he used the soul attraction technique that day, he saw 4 tiny spots of light on the Lich's heart, as well as a faint wood aura. It was branded with the mark of the Gomong Shaman Tribe. What's wrong, Lin Feng? Wei Hai could not help but ask when he saw Lin Feng standing motionless with a deep look in his eyes. Nothing. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Senior Hai, stay a little further away later. Is it a fiend or what spirit? Wei Hai widened his eyes, feeling curious. Along the way, this was the first time Lin Feng had asked him to stay a little further away. One could imagine how powerful the enemy was. It's the Gomong Shaman Tribe, Lin Feng said calmly. What? Wei Hai's expression changed as he exclaimed. How many? 1, Lin Feng said softly. In the Lich's heart's vision, there was only one Gomong Shaman Tribe member. Even he did not know why he would appear here. However, his senses could not be wrong. Wei Hai heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Wei Hai had experienced the power of the Shaman Tribe firsthand. Humans of the same level were no match for them. Their bodies were terrifyingly strong, and they were born with innate talent. Every member of the sorcerer tribe was a natural-born warrior, and they were blessed by the heavens. We've only met one shaman on our way here. Our luck is pretty good. Wei Hai smiled. He was extremely confident in Lin Feng's current strength and casually asked, "Oh right, Brother Lin, what level of shaman tribe are you?" Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. For the first time, the aura sensor sensed his arrival. A murderous aura filled the air. He recognized him. Cosmic Sea State, level 8, Lin Feng said with lightning in his eyes. In an instant, Lin Feng was like a violent gale as an extremely fierce battle intent exploded out. Like a shooting star, his shocking speed exploded out in an instant and far exceeded the range of Wei Hai's line of sight. As the strong wind blew, Wei Hai widened his eyes in shock. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Level 8 Cosmic Sea State, Gomang Shaman Tribe? You must be joking. Whoosh! Lin Feng was extremely fast. His eyes were filled with battle intent, and the nightmare demon spear on his back hummed. He did not want to dodge. The moment the witch's heart sensed danger, it was not difficult for him to deliberately dodge. The shaman tribe was close to the cave. As long as he entered the cave, no matter how strong this Gomang shaman tribe was, he could only sigh. That day, he, Xian Air, Qi Yang, and Qiyu had escaped this calamity. But this time, he was unwilling. 2 hunts. It's time to settle the score. Lin Feng pulled out the nightmare demon spear. The fiery red spear shone with a bright light. If others advanced a foot, he would advance 10 feet. That day, he had swallowed his anger because he was not strong enough. But now, it's enough to fight. Lin Feng's eyes glinted coldly. The dark green figure in the distance was already vaguely visible. It was as if the heavenly thunder had triggered the earthly fire. This battle was unavoidable, one to decide the victor. Boom! The Gomang shaman tribe swooped down with sharp claws. The wings on his back formed 2 wings of light. In the air, the Gomang shaman tribe had an absolute advantage. Ta! Lin Feng's feet landed on the ground, and the nightmare demon spear shone brightly. Fighting with the Gomang shaman tribe in the air was the stupidest thing to do. Their speed was equal. The Gomang shaman tribe had a body that was equivalent to a star sea state war god. At this moment, as the purple-black whirlpool shone, the speed increased and decreased. Lin Feng and the Gomang shaman tribe stood on the same level. However, the Gomang shamans, who were attacking from the sky, had the advantage of being on the offense. Moreover, in terms of power, the black fog could not increase, so Lin Feng was inferior. But the spear technique, Emperor Shun's energy, and the enhancement of the aura greatly reduced the gap between the two. Storm spear art. Lin Feng shouted coldly. The spear in his hand was like a shuttle, and he did not dodge at all. The first attack was to test the strength of this monster that had driven him to a dead end. The strong eye of the storm suddenly formed a hurricane-like force. The word coil brought out the sharpness of the concept. Lin Feng had already grasped the spear intent contained in the second wooden sculpture. The gentle force eased the crazy attack of the Gomang shaman tribe and brought its power into the eye of the storm. Control the rhythm. That's all there is to it. Lin Feng's eyes flashed coldly. All the force in his body passed from his waist to his spine, and then from his spine to his right arm. His body seemed to have condensed into one. Like a spring, all the gentle force condensed. The nightmare demon spear in his hand vibrated, and the milky white energy formed a spiral shape. The shocking power of the second level, the 7th level, burst out at this moment. Boom! An earth-shattering sound. The frightening airflow formed a circular explosion that spread out in all directions, creating a huge destructive force. His true strength was unleashed. A crazy fight. Gravel flew everywhere, and the weeds were all affected by the airflow and turned into ashes. Other than this muddy and soft land, with Lin Feng and the Gomang shaman tribe as the center point, it became a barren area. A fight between the top. A loud roar with extreme anger resounded through the sky. They were evenly matched. The arrogant Gomang shaman tribe was furious. In front of him, there was only a tiny human warrior. Pa! Lin Feng's numb left hand gripped the spear's handle tightly. The torn web between his thumb and index finger had already healed. In terms of recovery ability, Lin Feng was even better than the Gomang shaman tribe, who had the aura of wood. Because the blood flowing in his body was the blood of the divine beast, the phoenix. This time, I am no longer afraid of you. Lin Feng sneered. His numb arm had already recovered. It was hard to tell who would win in the first direct contact, but he did not use his full strength. 30 years to the west, 30 years to the east. Back then, you couldn't kill me, but now, it's my turn to kill you. Pong! Emperor Shun's energy exploded again. A milky white aura spread wildly around his body. The nightmare demon spear seemed to feel its master's battle intent and vibrated violently. Whoosh! Lin Feng rushed out. Black mist appeared and enveloped the Gomang shaman tribe. The difference in speed between them narrowed as they clashed again. Lin Feng did not hold back anymore. Lin Feng's eyes changed rapidly as he shouted, "Secret clone!" His figure instantly separated, forming a clone. The main body was in front, and the clone was behind. Rebirth fire. An intense fireball condensed, and the clone stopped on the spot. Ferocious flames gathered crazily. The Gomang shaman tribe was naturally fond of wood and had a natural fear of fire. Although the power of the rebirth fire would not be able to heavily injure this Gomang shaman tribe, the rebirth fire could condense and condense again. He was not in a hurry. Lin Feng was only in his god of war state now. He could already hold his own. Pong! 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 The intense battle did not give way at all. The Gomang shaman tribe roared angrily. He had the absolute advantage in the air, but on the ground he could not do anything to Lin Feng. The black mist followed closely, and as his speed decreased, the Gomang shaman tribe and Lin Feng were locked in a fierce battle. However, as the huge fireball behind him condensed and condensed, forming an extremely terrifying power, the Gomang shaman tribe's expression became uglier and uglier. He roared loudly and anxiously. He was naturally afraid of fire. Bang! Once again, it was an indiscriminate clash. In terms of agility, Lin Feng was far inferior to the Gomang shaman tribe. The only thing he could do was to use his attacks to counterattack. He had to seize every opportunity to exhaust his strength and patience. At this moment, the power of the rebirth fire gathered by the clone had reached a terrifying level. I can't control it. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He was multitasking, and the clone was also controlled by him. The crazy power condensed, and the Gomang shaman tribe roared strangely. His natural fear of fire kept accumulating. Seeing that he could not kill Lin Feng, the shocking flame not far away was ready to explode. Finally, the last nerve in the Gomang shaman tribe's heart twitched. Go! Possessing intelligence not inferior to humans, the Gomang shaman tribe also belonged to the human race. He knew very well that a wise man did not fight when the odds were against him. Of course, he would not pester endlessly. But it was exactly what Lin Feng wanted. Do you think you can leave? Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Star power, grade 1. At the human soul, the red light shone brightly and exploded instantly. Lin Feng bellowed. His power bloomed crazily. Streams of powerful energy surged out like a flood breaking through a dam. They covered every inch of Lin Feng's meridians, skin, bones, and muscles. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He would not let go of the opportunity he had been waiting for so long. At this moment, Lin Feng's strength multiplied as he unleashed all of his star power. At this moment, go! Lin Feng bellowed. The fireball in the clone's hand flew out crazily with shocking speed and power. This terrifying power had already reached the limit of his control. In fact, Lin Feng did not intend to control it. The shocking fireball lit up the entire swamp. There were no other colors. The terrifying power had exceeded the limit. Not far away, Wei Hai, who had just arrived, stared at the huge fiery red ball. His eyes widened as if he was suffocating. Oh my god, Wei Hai was completely stunned. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 520. #@ The Gomang shaman roared. Facing such a terrifying power, he could no longer remain calm. The flames of rebirth that were constantly accumulating had reached an abnormally terrifying level. Most importantly, the Gomang shaman race was naturally afraid of fire. Just like their natural affinity with wood, the Gomang shaman race also had a weakness. Not only physically, but also psychologically. Whoosh! Green light shone brightly. The Gomang shaman race's body emitted a terrifying aura that was filled with dense energy. The wings on his back were like two sharp blades cutting through the void. In the air, the Gomang shaman race had an absolute advantage. He was like a fish swimming in the sea, but ordinary human warriors could not compare to him. Dodge! He used all his strength to dodge. The astonishing fireball formed by the flames of rebirth was indeed terrifying, but at the same time, its speed was greatly reduced. However, space deceleration. The eyes of Lin Feng's secret clone lit up rapidly. The condensed chi of heaven and earth descended from the sky like lightning, as fast as the wind. It was like a heavenly existence that landed in the center of the Gomang shaman race's body and exploded violently. An extremely furious and ferocious roar sounded. The Gomang shaman race screamed as if he had gone mad. Green light shone as he released all his strength. Fine again. Although the space deceleration was not as powerful as the black fog, it lasted for a long time. This was especially true in terms of endurance. After all, Lin Feng's secret clone had yet to reach the StarCraft rank. However, it did not need too long. It only needed a moment of pause, a moment of weakness. The fireball that condensed astonishing power had completely descended, as if it was about to destroy the world. Everything seemed to be precisely calculated, without any deviation. Amazing, really amazing. Wei Hai's eyes widened, and his heartbeat sped up. To him, a battle of this level had already far exceeded the scope of his knowledge. Star C Level 8 Gomang Shaman Race. That was already a transcendent existence that could sweep across the entire Green Smoke City. Not to mention the ancestors of Wind Rise Valley. Even the experts of Green Smoke City probably did not dare to face such a terrifying existence. But now one appeared. Lin Feng, a heart-wrenching sound. The eyes of Lin Feng's secret clone lit up. Although he did not understand the language of the sorcerer tribe, he could tell from the tone and roars. The Gomang shaman tribe was filled with fear. Just like humans, the sorcerer tribe also had 7 emotions and 6 desires. In fact, other than the difference in their body structure, there was no difference between the sorcerer tribe and the human tribe. The 3 major human clans, the sorcerer tribe, the ancient tribe, and the human tribe, seemed to be born from the same womb. In a sense, they were one. Shock and horror. All sorts of emotions surfaced on the Gomang shaman's face. Due to the space in which he was slowed down once again. It was impossible for him to escape the attack range of the rebirth fireball. That was a destructive power. The fiery red light reflected on the Gomang shaman's face, reflecting his fear. The green light emitted by his dark green body was like the light of a firefly under the illumination of the fiery red light. He was unable to resist at all. All that was left was the ferocious faces of the Gomang shamans as they crazily attacked with green light. Use all your strength. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion. The fiery red color instantly erupted with astonishing power. Like a meteor explosion, the aftershocks quickly spread in all directions. The attack power was also not to be underestimated. Oh no! Wei Hao was horrified. The fire in front of him was extremely shocking, but he could not retreat even if he wanted to. The aftershocks were like fire dragons that attacked him, as if they were going to swallow everything. If he was hit, he would be severely injured even if he did not die. But bang! A fireball instantly flew over and collided with the fire dragons. The surging energy suddenly exploded, and the fluctuation of the airflow created a gust of wind that forced Wei Hai to retreat dozens of feet. Wei Hai was extremely frightened. At this moment, he finally understood what Lin Feng meant. Stay away. Wei Hai's face turned red, and he felt a little embarrassed, but he still needed Lin Feng to save him. However, Wei Hai was even more horrified at this moment. The aftershocks of the fireball were already so terrifying. The Gomang shaman, who had hit the bullseye, was facing what kind of power was that? I'm afraid he's been burned to ashes, Wei Hai thought. Looking up, Wei Hai was instantly horrified. No way, he's actually not dead yet. The energy of the huge fireball was crazily leaking out. The Gomang shaman's expression was extremely ugly, and the emerald light in front of him had become extremely dim. As the huge fireball pressed forward aggressively, the Gomang shaman kept retreating to offset the power. There was no doubt about the power of the shaman race, not to mention the level 8-star C-state shaman race. Just as Wei Hai knew, that was an elite that could wipe out the entire Green Smoke City. But now, Lin Feng was already standing on the same level as the Gomang shaman race. His strength was not inferior at all. In fact, even more so. The power of the fireball was continuously weakened. However, the power of the Gomang shaman race was weakening even faster. As time passed, the stalemate came to an end. As the last bit of green light was exhausted, the Gomang shaman race let out a heart-wrenching roar. The huge rebirth fireball was unstoppable. Like the last straw that broke the camel's back, in an instant, the remaining power of the fireball exploded with the final attack. Like a meteorite, it crashed down. Bang! Red light illuminated the sky, accompanied by that heart-wrenching roar. Wei Hai's heart was about to jump out of his throat. He's dead for sure. Wei Hai was already stunned. This power was too terrifying. But was he really dead? He had underestimated the level 8-star C-state shaman race. Even other shamans might not die, let alone the Gomang shaman race, who was known for their vitality and defense. Although it was afraid of fire, the level of the rebirth flame was a level lower than the rebirth flame. Only injured but not dead. The Gomang shaman race screamed crazily, feeling a heart-wrenching pain. At this moment, he wanted nothing more than to tear that despicable human into pieces. The fireball's power formed a great impact and explosive force, burning every inch of his skin. Due to the strong inertia, it continued to shoot up into the sky. He wanted to take revenge and kill Lin Feng. But the Gomang shaman race had no chance. In the air, a black figure was already standing there like a ghost. The fiery red light gathered all over his body, and his muscles swelled. Intense astral power overflowed and exploded. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Lin Feng's eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky. Wei Hai underestimated the Gomang shaman race because he was not strong enough and did not have enough vision. But he would not. The shaman race, who was known for their strong physical bodies, was not so easy to kill. The familiar aura in front of him was getting closer and closer. The strong momentum and inertia caused the Gomang shaman race to fly backward at the highest speed. Now, Lin Feng's eyes shone with a cold light. Emperor Shun's astral energy exploded. Thick black fog spread, and thousands of small holes in the wind vortex exploded with extreme force. Lin Feng stepped out in the air with his right foot, and all the power in his body exploded. The aura in his left hand and meridians were connected, shining brightly. This was his strongest attack. Die! Lin Feng shouted coldly. The nightmare demon's spear stabbed out like a ghost, and the surging energy roared instantly. Although the Gomang shaman race had an absolute advantage in the air, he could not dodge at all. No matter how strong his control was, no matter how abnormal his body was, he could not go against the control of heaven and earth. The Gomang shaman race could feel the fierce astral energy, and his dark green eyes were filled with shock and fear. At %yen hashtag, with his last roar, the Gomang shaman race seemed to have gone mad. But he could not continue. Bang! Extremely shocking power accumulated, erupting with the most terrifying power. Using the secret doppelganger and the rebirth fireball, Lin Feng had perfectly unleashed 120% of his combat strength. The Gomang shaman race had no power to fight back. He was restrained from head to toe by Lin Feng. It seemed to be a stalemate, but he was stepping into Lin Feng's carefully laid trap. Crazy explosions and shocking destruction. Lin Feng focused all his power on this attack. That terrifying reaction force even caused Lin Feng's entire left hand to turn into a bloody mess, but the Nightmare Demon Spear was still firmly in his hand. The spear was still there. Too powerful. Is he really Lin Feng? Wei Hai stared at Lin Feng, who was in midair. He was completely dumbfounded. Others might not know, but he had watched Lin Feng grow up step by step. From a little fellow who knew nothing, he had grown to the level he was today. In just half a year, it was too shocking. Killing the Gomang shaman race? Wei Hai shook his head speechlessly. If he told others, no one would believe him. But now, he had seen it with his own eyes. Such a terrifying existence had died under Lin Feng's spear without any suspense. It was really too unbelievable. Lin Feng stood in midair. In the void, a sparkling and translucent green drop of blood shone brightly. It was full of power and power. It was bigger than the 4 green drops of blood he had absorbed before, and its energy was denser. The Lich's heart beat happily. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He reached out and grabbed it, absorbing it effortlessly. Happy, joyful. The Lich's heart seemed to have consciousness and life. The blood of the Zhurong shaman race could not be absorbed, but the blood of the Gomang shaman race came from the same source. Another one. Lin Feng smiled. This battle not only vented the pent-up anger in his heart, but also completely ended the past. Most importantly, the Lich's heart absorbed another drop of blood. Although he did not know what use this drop of blood had, it was definitely not ordinary. He had been hunted down by the Gomang shaman race twice. Back then, he could not resist. But now, Lin Feng smiled faintly, showing his confidence. His right hand gently grabbed the Nightmare Demon Spear and sheathed it. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, but his left hand had already lost feeling. It was heavily injured, but the broken skin on his left hand was constantly healing. New flesh grew and the necrotic skin was shed. The cells were constantly dividing, and the bones and meridians were rapidly repaired. Lin Feng smiled faintly. His body was even better than the Gomang shaman race. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 5:21. Reverence. Looking at Lin Feng, Wei Hai felt an inexplicable distance in his heart. That familiar face still had a faint smile, but it emitted a pressure that made his heart palpitate. Indeed, Lin Feng was too strong. It was fine if he didn't know, but the clearer he understood, the more Wei Hai felt breathless. To be able to kill a Star Sea level 8 Gomang shaman without being injured at all. What kind of power was this? Wei Hai looked at Lin Feng in a daze, unable to say anything. At least, among the people he knew and even heard of, no one had this kind of power. Perhaps only the legendary powerhouses of the Wild Goose tribe and the Wild Goose sect had this kind of terrifying power. What's wrong, Senior Hai? Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, the two Lin Feng had already merged. He didn't need the help of the secret clone to kill the Gomang shaman. No, nothing. Wei Hai smiled and said, By the way, thank you for your help just now, Brother Lin. If not for Lin Feng's fireball, just now, he would have probably been skinned even if he didn't die. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. He didn't mind. To him, it was a piece of cake. Sensing Wei Hai's uneasiness, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He vaguely understood that he couldn't force it. Let's go, Senior Hai. Without further delay, Lin Feng moved forward slowly. To be honest, he was also afraid of the Gomang shaman race. This time, he was just lucky to encounter one. So what if there were 10? So what if there were 100? He probably wouldn't be so lucky. With my current war god strength one-on-one, it's indeed easy. But, Lin Feng pondered, but he still had some distractions. In the past, he was best at group battles, but now, it had become his weakness. The rebirth flame had stopped, and the devouring flame was also difficult to improve. Now, he could only rely on Wing in group battles. However, the wings were also very limited. Firstly, the wings needed earth to plant its trunk. Secondly, the wings could not move, which was very troublesome. Thirdly, the winged insect also relied on earth to attack. If the enemy was in midair, the winged insect would not have a place to fight. Most importantly, the winged bug's attack power was only 1/10 of Wing's main body. The advancement of a heavenly soul master must wait for the starry sky, pupil to awaken and recover. As for the advancement of a celestial spirit master and martial god, the phoenix natal plate must activate another fated astrolabe. Lin Feng thought to himself, feeling a little helpless. The former was useless even if he was anxious. The latter was even more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Take your time. There will always be a chance. Lin Feng's eyes lit up and he nodded. The battle against the Gomang shamans had allowed him to see the power of teamwork. If his secret clone could become a little stronger, at that time, his strength would become even stronger. This is the place, senior high. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The hole in front of him no longer existed. Instead, it was a pile of rubble and soil. It was obvious that after he left, the Gomang shamans had destroyed and excavated this place. Here, Wei Hai was stunned. There was no entrance in the mound of soil that looked like a small hill in front of him. However, Wei Hai did not suspect Lin Feng. With Lin Feng's current strength, there was no point in lying to him. There was also no need for him to go through so much trouble. It's a little troublesome. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The Gomang shamans had destroyed this place too much. It would not be easy to find the entrance. However, whoosh. His left eye flashed. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Wing! With a soft shout, a red-green light flashed. Wing appeared. Wei Hai was already used to it. Find an entrance for me, Wing. Lin Feng nodded gently and instructed. It would definitely take a lot of effort to find it, but Wing, it would be easy. He stood there calmly. Lin Feng closed his eyes and shared the vision of the thousands of wing bugs. It was like a pitch-black map. Rays of light lit up, and every corner of the map was in front of him. There was no need to explore. The wing bugs were his eyes. Soon there, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. There was no need for him to give the order. In an instant, Wing's branches shot out like arrows, heading straight for the entrance. Like arrows piercing through the clouds, Wing's thousands of branches moved together. Their efficiency was only faster than his. In the blink of an eye, a tunnel appeared in front of him. Let's go, senior high. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Oh, okay. Okay. Wei Hai was dumbfounded as he hurriedly responded. The newly opened path was unobstructed. Walking in the long tunnel, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He could imagine how furious the Gomang shamans were when the spirit chi disappeared. The entire cave was almost razed to the ground. Fortunately, he had blocked the center of the cave. If they wanted to dig there, the Gomang shamans would probably have to remove the entire mountain range. What a waste. Moreover, he knew about it. However, the Gomang shamans did not know the reason for the sudden disappearance of the spirit chi. It was undoubtedly a foolish thing to waste the strength of the entire Gomang shamans for a possibility. They dug until here and gave up. Lin Feng smiled faintly. There was still more than half the distance to the center of the cave. If they went further in, they would be at the densest part of the mountain range. If they wanted to dig further, the effort they would have to expend would multiply. The Gomang shamans would also weigh their gains and losses. They would not do anything too foolish. There really is a cave. Wei Hai's eyes lit up. The cave entrance, which was less than the height of a person, looked extremely small, but it was just enough to accommodate humans. The cave was 1.5 meters tall. They only needed to bend their bodies to rush in. Their speed might not be fast, but it was enough. That day, we were chased by 200 Gomang shamans. If not for this natural barrier, we would have died. Lin Feng smiled as he spoke to Wei Hai. He could not forget the danger that day. It could be said that they had narrowly escaped death. Wei Hai shook his head with a bitter smile. 200 Gomang shamans. Anyone who heard that would probably feel their hair stand on end. As Wei Hai rode behind Lin Feng and shuttled through the narrow cave, he could clearly feel the sorry state everyone was in that day. Sigh. Wei Hai sighed softly. Senior brother, you've really made one wrong move, and then you've made many wrong moves. From a moment you mistakenly believed in Li Ming, you stepped into the abyss of eternal damnation. Wei Hai shook his head and felt that it was a pity. But at the same time, he was glad that he had chosen to believe in Lin Feng. It was a kind of intuition, a kind of trust. Reality proved that he was right. Soon, the two of them reached a dead end. Lin Feng's eyes focused as he smiled. This was the collapse that he had caused. The fact that it still existed was enough to prove that Xian Air, Qi Yang, and Qiyu had not met with any accidents and were still living safely in the land of spiritual energy. To him, this was the best news. Boom! Flames appeared in his hand and instantly opened up a path. Instantly, whoosh! A shocking amount of spiritual energy assailed his nostrils. It was as if he had opened a tightly shut door and released all the air in the room. Wei Hai widened his eyes as his expression changed from surprise to joy. What a shocking amount of spiritual energy. Let's go, Senior Hai. There's still half of the journey left, Lin Feng said with a smile. At this point, he was already very familiar with the place. Looking at the pitch-black path, he felt as if he could already see the end of the path. It was the land of spiritual energy. How are all of you? Lin Feng muttered softly as a faint smile appeared on his face. As he sped forward, he recalled the precious memories of him, Xian Air, and the others when he first entered the battle spirit world. The spiritual energy became denser and denser. The joy on Wei Hai's face became more and more intense, until a faint white membrane flashed. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he passed through it. Whoosh! I'm back. Lin Feng smiled. The rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth covered his entire body, giving him a warm and comfortable feeling. Every pore on his body was absorbing spiritual energy as if a clear spring was flowing through, allowing his heart to be completely calm. The green grass was full of vitality. The blooming flowers emitted an intoxicating fragrance. This colorful world was filled with the ultimate beauty of heaven and earth. The faint purple light illuminated this small world, making it seem like another world. A paradise. Enigmatic star fruit, ling grass, spirit transformation tree. Wei Hai looked around in a daze with a shocked expression. His chest heaved up and down as his heartbeat sped up. His mouth was wide open as he was completely dumbfounded. He had always heard Lin Feng say that this was a land of spiritual energy. However, he did not expect that there were immortal fruits and immortal herbs everywhere. How valuable was this? The destitute Fengyang Valley had many things to do. Wei Hai was like an unarmed martial artist who had entered an armory full of divine weapons. He was completely stunned. 3 stars, 4 stars. Oh my God, there are even 5-star immortal fruits. Wei Hai was abnormally shocked. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the place where the purple light gathered. He took a deep breath, and his body trembled slightly. The spiritual energy was too dense. No wonder there are so many immortal fruits and immortal herbs. What a blessed place. Wei Hai's heart trembled as his eyes lit up. The real treasure here was not those immortal fruits and immortal herbs, but the astonishing density of spiritual energy. A cultivation treasure land. If the disciples of Fengyang Valley can cultivate here, Wei Hai took a deep breath and looked at the future of Fengyang Valley. He was overwhelmed with emotions. Even a disciple with mediocre aptitude could become extremely outstanding if he cultivated here. One had to know that the density of spiritual energy not only affected martial artists below the star sea level, but also affected the comprehension and absorption of astral power. It was applicable to all martial artists. However, Wei Hai frowned slightly and felt troubled. It would not be easy to enter this place again. Don't think too much. Let's go, Senior Hai. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he spoke softly. How could he not know what Senior Hai was thinking? However, to him, That was all he could do to help Fengyang Valley. Looking ahead, the corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. He could clearly sense three auras that he had not seen for a long time. Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and Xian Air. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 522. You've improved quite a bit. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He sensed that Qi Yang and Qi Yu's Qi were about the same. They had both reached level 2 cosmic state. Qi Yang was stronger. The weakest of the three, Xian Air, not only successfully broke through to the cosmic sea state, but she was only one step away from level 2 cosmic sea state, catching up to Qi Yu. In fact, Xian Air's talent was the best among the three. Soon, under Lin Feng's lead, the three familiar figures could be vaguely seen. Wei Hai's expression changed as he sensed three powerful Kais. Two of them were almost on par with him. Along with Wei Hai's senses, it was as if a pool of lightning had been stirred up, and Xian and the others who were originally sitting cross-legged in cultivation instantly woke up and revealed expressions of pleasant surprise. "They're here, Senior Hai," Lin Feng said with a smile. Lin Feng looked at the three, and he could vaguely see their figures. Feeling that familiar energy qi, his heart was slightly touched. Especially Xian Air, who was at the end, they had a clear relationship. Lin Feng, Linda Good. Joyful voices came from the distance. Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and Xian Air were all overjoyed. Their faces were brimming with happiness and excitement. Lin Feng coming back safe and sound was more important than anything else. As for the other person, Martial Uncle Hai, it's really Martial Uncle Hai. Qi Yang and Qi Yu were pleasantly surprised. Xian Air, who was the last to arrive, looked at Wei Hai, her eyes filled with disbelief. In an instant, tears fell like rain, but they were tears of joy. Uncle Hai, little Xian Air. Wei Hai couldn't stop smiling. Seeing family, their hearts were deeply touched. Whether it was Xian Air or Wei Hai, they had experienced too much in these few months. Looking at Xian Air, who was hugging Wei Hai tightly like a bird returning to its nest, Lin Feng smiled. This kind of family was the most sincere relationship in the world. There were no gains or losses, no betrayal, and no amount of money could buy it. In Green Smoke City, Xian Air and Wei Hai only had one family. Qi Yang and Qi Yu stood on the side with a smile. After a few storms, everyone finally gathered. Lindigo, look, Xian didn't slack off these few months. Wei Xian was like a cheerful little rabbit, extremely excited. Indeed, Wei Xian was only a level 7 Cosmic River State, but now, not only did he break through to the StarCraft level, but he was also one step into the Second Order. Such a cultivation speed was quite terrifying. Amazing. Lin Feng gave him a thumbs up and smiled. Based on the Xian Air he knew, she was someone who loved to play and couldn't settle down. For her to be like this, she must have changed a lot. Turning his gaze towards Qi Yang and Qi Yu, Lin Feng said with a smile, "Looks like no one slacked off. All of them broke through to the Star Sea level." In Green Smoke City, that was an enormous bottleneck. However, the spiritual qi here was dense. Not to mention other things, just the inexhaustible immortal fruits and immortal herbs were already endlessly beneficial to the three of them. Breaking through to the cosmic sea state was a matter of course. Yes, brother, and I didn't dare to slack off at all. Qi Yu nodded with a smile. Qi Yang clenched his fists, his eyes twinkling as he said confidently, "Lin Feng, now we have the ability to help you." Wei Hai's expression turned from shock to excitement. At this moment, he finally understood what Lin Feng meant when he left Fengyang Valley. Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and Xian were now enough to replace Li Ming, Wang Feng, and Ding Qing as the new signboards of Fengyang Valley. With the three of their current strength, one could completely imagine how amazing it would be at the elite martial arts competition next year. Fengyang Valley would definitely emerge as a new force. However, all right, be humble, Wei Hai said casually. Although the improvement of your strength is astonishing. If you want to help Brother Lin, the battle just now appeared in his mind, and Wei Hai shook his head with a bitter smile. The difference was too great. Lin Feng's strength had already reached a level that was beyond everyone's reach. Brother Lin, you? Qiang sized up Lin Feng curiously, but he couldn't feel his aura at all. Qi Yu's beautiful eyes twinkled, and she instantly understood. Could it be that, Lindiga, you have also broken through to the cosmic sea state? That day, Lin Feng was only at the 7th stage of the cosmic sea state, but his strength was already quite terrifying. One could completely imagine how powerful he would be when he reached the cosmic sea state. Xian Er's eyes widened as she said, Lindiga, what stage of the cosmic sea state are you at? 1st or 2nd stage? Ah, Xian Er exclaimed. Lindigo, could it be that you're at the 3rd stage? Hearing this, Qi Yang and Qi Yu's eyes lit up. Looking at the curious crowd, Lin Feng smiled lightly. No, it's the 5th stage. There was complete silence. Other than Wei Hai, everyone was dazed on the spot, feeling suffocated. They originally thought that their speed of improvement was already fast enough, but they didn't expect Lin Feng's improvement to be so terrifying in such a short time. It was truly too shocking. The three of them looked at Wei Hai in a daze and finally understood what Wei Hai meant just now. The 5th stage of the cosmic sea state was already beyond their reach. Even sect leader Ding Hong and Grand Elder Ding Ding couldn't compare. But don't listen to Brother Lin's modesty. Wei Hai smiled. Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and Xian Er were dazed. This was modesty? Then what was not modesty? You guys don't know, but Brother Lin personally killed a cosmic sea state level 8 Gomang shaman race. Thinking about it, Wei Hai felt his blood boil. This was definitely the most exciting battle he had ever seen. Lin Feng had completely explained to him what he was thinking. Humans weren't inferior to the shaman race. See, gasps could be heard as everyone's faces were filled with shock. Cosmic sea state level 8 Gomang shaman race. What kind of terrifying existence was that? In the entire Green Smoke City, probably no one could deal with such a monster. Human martial artists who were also cosmic sea state level 8 had almost no chance of winning. But Lin Feng in front of them. This is true? Qiang was completely dazed. However, he also thought that his question was funny. Wei Hai had no reason to lie to them. I saw it with my own eyes. Wei Hai's eyes lit up. Seeing Xian Er and the other two's surprise, he immediately described what he saw and heard vividly. The three of them exclaimed. Even though Lin Feng didn't mind their gazes, he still felt a little embarrassed. Only when Wei Hai finished speaking did Xian Er and the others slowly calm down, and the rise and fall of their chests gradually eased up. Their gazes towards Lin Feng were completely different. It was filled with envy, admiration, and gazing at him like a mountain. It's just a fortuitous encounter. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Wow, Lindiga, you're so powerful. Xian admires you so much. Wei Xian covered her mouth in shock, her beautiful eyes shining. Wei Xian, who was the most naive, was pleasantly surprised. Originally, Lin Feng's strength was unfathomable, but to her, now wasn't it still the same? Oh my God, Lin Feng, how did you cultivate? Qi Yang's heart throbbed in disbelief. He originally thought that after cultivating hard, his strength would be close to Lin Feng, but he didn't expect to be pulled further and further away, to the point where he couldn't even see Lin Feng's back. Lin Feng's eyes shone as he spoke slowly. Many things have happened in these few months. As he spoke, his gaze turned towards Wei Hai. When their eyes met, the latter was also deeply moved. All of you have been cultivating here without paying attention to the outside world. Therefore, you do not know that the entire Green Smoke City has changed. Not only that, the current Wind Rise Valley sigh. Accompanied by a long sigh, Wei Hai tirelessly recounted what had happened in the past few months. The complicated process, unbelievable changes, and Wind Rise Valley affected the hearts of the three. 15 minutes later. I really didn't expect this. Qi Yang let out a long sigh. Li Ming, that bastard. Big bastard. Yu was so angry that her almond-shaped eyebrows furrowed. Everything started with Li Ming as the fuse. "I'm sorry, Linda Gu. We caused you to be wronged." She bit her bitter lips and said guiltily. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. "It's just a small matter." As he spoke, Lin Feng looked at Wei Hai and said, "At least Senior Hai trusted me from the beginning to the end." Wei Hai patted his chest and said proudly, "Of course, I never misjudge people." The three of them could not help but be amused by Wei Hai's expression. Qiang nodded and said, "Don't worry, Senior Hai. My sister and I will definitely not leave Windrise Valley." Yu agreed. "That's right. With Marshal Uncle Hai as the sect master in the future, we will work together and Windrise Valley will definitely rise again." "Me too. Me too," Wei Xian shouted. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They all felt a sense of warmth and unity. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he smiled faintly. Although there was a huge change in Windrise Valley, it was not a bad change. Remove the dross and extract the essence. It was like being reborn from a cocoon. "By the way, Brother Lin Feng, when are we going back?" Qiang asked. "Is there any danger outside now, Linda Gu?" Xianer asked. Lin Feng smiled faintly. A light flickered in his hand, and he instantly took out a stack of talismans with strange patterns and a mysterious aura. Looking at the talismans that seemed familiar, Qi Yang and the other two sighed softly. However, Wei Hai's eyes brightened. "A 2-star spirit treasure, city return talisman?" Wei Hai said in surprise. "Yes, use it to return to Green Smoke City." Lin Feng smiled faintly. "Although there is a distance limit, it is more than enough to return to Green Smoke City from here." Qi Yang and the other two had completely recalled that Li Ming also had one. It was a reward from the elite martial competition. It was said that it was very precious, but at this moment, there was a stack in Lin Feng's hand. It was too frightening. "How much was this worth?" "I'll keep a few. You can take the rest." Lin Feng nodded. "Huh." Wei Xian was surprised. "Linda Gu, aren't you going back with us?" Lin Feng shook his head. A phosphorescent light flickered in his eyes as he looked at the central area enveloped by the purple light. He said slowly, "Last time, I didn't have the chance to explore this place with spirit energy. This time, I can't miss it no matter what." Back then, he was not strong enough and could not enter the central area protected by the wood spirit. That place seemed to contain the secret of this place where spirit energy gathered. But now he already had enough strength. He wanted to find out the truth. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 523. Lin Feng, are you really going to explore that area? Qiang asked in surprise. Yes. Lin Feng nodded without hesitation. His intuition told him that he would definitely find something in the center of the spirit energy treasure land. There must be a reason behind this anomaly. A spirit energy treasure land had appeared out of nowhere in this purple swamp. If there was nothing in the center, who would believe it? Even though it was dangerous with countless wood spirits guarding it. But he had the confidence to go in. Even if he returned empty-handed in the end, he would have one less worry. What are your plans? Lin Feng asked. Qi Yang and Qi Yu looked at each other. We plan to continue cultivating here until next year's elite martial competition before returning. And me? Wei Xian lifted her head and looked at Wei Hai. Uncle Hai is Xian Er's only relative in Green Smoke City. I have to help Fengyang Valley overcome this difficulty. Also, Wei Xian pursed her lips and looked at Lin Feng. Her beautiful eyes flickered with determination. There was one more thing that she did not tell anyone. The reason why she worked so hard to cultivate, it was because she wanted to get closer to Lin Feng so that the distance between them would not be so great. Perhaps this was an extravagant hope, but she would continue to work hard. Wei Hai blushed and smiled. I also plan to cultivate for a few months. Anyway, Qing is in charge of the sect. It's not a big problem. With such a spirit energy treasure land, it was no wonder that Wei Hai was tempted. After all, Wei Hai really liked cultivating and did not care about mundane matters like managing the sect. Otherwise, he would not have handed over full authority of the sect to Ding Hong. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. The four people in front of him were the future axis of Fengyang Valley. After another year of hard work, he could imagine how amazing Fengyang Valley would be during next year's elite martial competition. They would soar to the sky. By the way, senior high, remember to pick more 4- and 5-star immortal fruits when you return, Lin Feng said. To him, these immortal fruits were not very useful. Even the 5-star immortal fruits were only worth 10,000 soul coins. As for 6-star immortal fruits, there were only 3 of them. Wei Hai's eyes lit up when he heard that. Those were shining Do Ling coins, which were very important to the current Windrise Valley. However, because Lin Feng hadn't said anything, he was too embarrassed to pick them. Regardless of whether it was him or Qi Yang and the other two, being able to cultivate here was already a great fortune. How could he be so greedy? That won't do, Lin Feng. 4-star immortal fruits are fine, but if you pick 5-star immortal fruits. Shaking his head, Qi Yang pulled up his sleeve and pointed at his left arm. Lin Feng looked over and instantly saw an extremely deep scar, as if it had been cut open by a sharp blade. There with spirit guards? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It wasn't hard to guess what had happened with such injuries and the geography of this place. An extremely powerful wood spirit. Qi Yu continued. 10 days ago, my brother and I want to pick a 5-star immortal fruit, the Dragon Eye Chrysanthemum, but we didn't expect to provoke the wood spirit here. Several thorny vines like poisonous snakes attacked violently. If my brother hadn't dodged quickly, his entire left arm would have been cut off. Recalling the situation that day, Qi Yu was shocked. Qi Yang had almost been crippled. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Bring me there. Qi Yang and Qi Yu agreed. The place with Spirit Qi was not big. Soon, the group arrived at the location of the 5-star immortal fruit, the Dragon Eye Chrysanthemum. It emitted a faint fragrance and was the size of a sunflower. It was yellow with a hint of red, and it was filled with extreme energy. The fruit was not big, but it was as big as a dragon's eye. It made one's heart palpitate. It was a 5-star immortal fruit, Dragon Eye Chrysanthemum. Wait for me here, Lin Feng said calmly. Taking a step forward, Lin Feng's expression was calm, without any fluctuation in his emotions. Lin Feng, Qi Yang exclaimed, but he didn't continue. Thinking of Lin Feng's strength, perhaps he could really deal with the wood spirit here. Be careful, Linda Gu, Wei Xian said. Although she was very confident in Lin Feng, Wei Xian was still worried. Don't worry, Brother Lin will be fine. Wei Hai crossed his arms and smiled. Others might not believe it, but he was very confident in Lin Feng. He could even kill the Gomang shaman race. A mere wood spirit. What was the big deal? Ta! Lin Feng's right foot landed on the ground. He felt a slight chill in his heart, as if a sense of danger was about to arrive. With a faint smile on his face, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He paused for a moment, then stepped forward. He had originally come here to test out the wood spirits. Instantly, whoosh, whoosh, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Numerous dancing thorny vines, flickering with a cold light, flew straight at him. The thorny vines attacked from all directions, without any blind spots. Every thorny vines seemed to have a unique life force. On the green vines, the green cold light formed into spiky balls, shooting out cold light. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The scar on Qi Yang's left arm was formed by the thorny vines formed by these spiky balls. It was exactly the same. The thorny vines enveloped him from all directions like a prison. Qi Yang and Qi Yu's expressions became extremely ugly. If Lin Feng died here, they couldn't escape the blame. Xian Er covered her mouth with both hands, unable to make a sound. She was extremely worried. In an instant, Lin Feng moved. A thick black fog suddenly bloomed. It was as if he was in a dark place. Even with his eyes closed, he could feel the dancing, thorny vines. Too slow. Lin Feng's voice was slightly displeased. Compared to Wing, no matter in which aspect, he was worlds apart. In the blink of an eye, the nightmare demon spear on his back was already in his hand. With the explosion of Emperor Shun's energy, The milky white light was like a light in the darkness. Lin Feng shouted. The nightmare demon spear streaked across the sky, creating a series of explosions. The speed was so fast that Qi Yang and the other two were dumbfounded. Bang! 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 It completely exploded. The thorny vines that were showing off just a moment ago had now turned into powder. The thorny vines that had caused great damage to Qi Yang and Qi Yu were crushed like grass. They couldn't resist Lin Feng at all. So powerful. Too powerful. Qi Yang and Qi Yu were dumbfounded. This was the first time they saw Lin Feng's true strength. They felt how small they were. Thinking about what he said just now, Qi Yang couldn't help but blush. His strength was far from Lin Feng's by just a little bit. Whoosh! Lin Feng was as fast as a gust of wind. The reason why he had tolerated the thorny vines and only attacked at the last moment. His main goal was to find the location of the wood spirit. It's there. Lin Feng's eyes flashed coldly. Not far away, the wood spirit was a strange plant that was 8 meters tall. The swollen branches intertwined in an intricate manner, as if they were a pile of weapons placed together. The red and black light had a sharp expression as if it could cry. Seeing Lin Feng approach, the thorny wood spirit immediately attacked crazily. But level 5-star ocean. Lin Feng's expression was calm. In Qi Yang and Qi Yu's eyes, this was an opponent that they couldn't face. But in front of him, this wood spirit was like a child. Too weak. 10 seconds later. Pa! Lin Feng took out the wood spear heart. The red and black light bloomed, emitting a faint energy aura. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As he held the heart of wood spirit in his hand, he felt an inexplicable sense of attraction. It was strange. The other wood spirit hearts don't have this feeling. It's not my illusion. Lin Feng's expression was serious as he turned to look at the central region. The dense, purple light shone, and that mysterious region seemed to be calling out to him. Interesting. Lin Feng smiled. Keeping the wood spirit heart, Lin Feng immediately turned and left. It was effortless. Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and Xian'er were dumbfounded. Their mouths were wide open, and they could swallow an entire egg. What you hear may be false, but what you see is true. Witnessing Lin Feng's strength with their own eyes, it was a power that made them look up to him. It had reached a level that was beyond their reach. Only Wei Hai was not surprised. Looking at the 3 dumbfounded people, Wei Hai smiled. You're dumbfounded just like that? Brother Lin didn't even show 1/3 of his strength. No way. Everyone smiled bitterly. This was too much of a blow. Lin Feng returned to the 5-star immortal fruit, the dragon eye chrysanthemum. He stepped to the side, squatted down, and gently plucked it. There was no difficulty, and there was no danger. It was rather easy. After the bramblewood spirit was killed, the dragon eye chrysanthemum became an ownerless item. Wow, Lindigo, you're so powerful, Wei Xian said excitedly. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. He looked at Xian'er and casually handed the dragon eye chrysanthemum to her. Xian'er, this is for you. Ah, this is too precious, Lindigo, Wei Xian said in surprise. Take it. Lin Feng nodded lightly. He felt very guilty toward Xian'er, and he also had a special feeling toward her. Was it because she looked like Zi Yao, or was it because of other reasons? He was not sure. Then, let's part ways here for now, Lin Feng said slowly as he looked at everyone. Okay, be careful, Brother Lin, Wei Hai said with a smile. Good luck, Lindigo. Wei Xian nodded vigorously. Soon, they parted ways. Lin Feng came to that familiar area. Lin Feng's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness, and the corner of his mouth curled up. I'm here again. Lin Feng looked ahead. The place covered by the purple mist had a mysterious force concealing it, making him unable to detect it. Last time, he returned without success because he was restrained by the wood spirit. This time, he was full of confidence. There are more than 20 energy chi, Lin Feng thought. The weakest among them was at Cosmic Sea State Level 3, and the strongest was beyond Cosmic Sea State Level 8. Compared to humans and the witch race, the wood spirit's attack power was weaker, but its defense, life force, and endurance were stronger. Interesting. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Today, I want to see what's so special about this spirit chi land. Bang! The nightmare demon spear was unsheathed. Completely ignoring the wood spirit's warning, Lin Feng shot out like a sharp arrow. He entered the central area. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 524. Whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, Lin Feng was blocked by the first layer of attacks. Two streaks of sharp light, one black and one white, appeared. They were like two extremely fast and mysterious hidden weapons. They glided over. Emperor Shun's aura. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He couldn't dodge. No matter to the left or right, the other wood spirit's follow-up attacks would all fall. And above, it was a land of death. What wood spirits were best at was entanglement. Especially when countless wood spirits attacked at the same time, the word entanglement could be used to its fullest potential. Attack after attack, the power might be inferior to that of a wizard of the same level, but it wasn't easy to defeat these wood spirits. Storm spear art, black fog condensed, and Lin Feng instantly stabbed out with his spear. The strong eye of the storm appeared, causing the surrounding space to distort. Lin Feng's spear was like lightning and thunder, shockingly powerful. He turned the soft force into hard force in an instant. Bang! The two sharp lights, black and white, were all shattered. The spiral-shaped white air current condensed on the nightmare demon spear. Lin Feng's storm spear art was fast and ruthless. When all the soft force exploded, its power was much stronger than the sun dragon spear art. But again, Lin Feng frowned. He had just defeated 2 attacks, and in an instant, he had to face 4 attacks. Not only did the pressure multiply, but it was also difficult to balance. Most importantly, after these 4 attacks, waves of even more shocking attacks surged over like a tide. It was extremely crazy. Troublesome. Lin Feng's eyes deepened. What he was weak at now was group battles. Especially when these 20 wood spirits attacked together. They weren't any weaker than the attacks of hundreds of warriors. The flames couldn't resist at all. The level was too low. Back then, he used the rebirth flame to fight against the 6th level star sea level wing. He used up all his strength and only won by a little. And in this place, wood spirits that were much more powerful than Wing could be found everywhere. The number was quite shocking. The group attacked together. Wave after wave. Lin Feng held the nightmare demon spear in his hand, exhausting it tirelessly. Although it was difficult for him to take even a single step forward, when faced with the attacks of these wood spirits, every time he struck out with his spear, he seemed to have a unique feeling. He seemed to have understood something, and suddenly had a realization. It was a very different kind of attack. A scattered attack, but a concentrated attack. It seems to be the power of the word coil, but in fact, it's a very unique concept. Yes, that's it. Lin Feng's eyes were sparkling, and his expression was somewhat blurred. In an instant, the expression and movements of a wooden sculpture appeared in his mind. It was as if he was there, and the feeling was extremely vivid. The 3rd wood carving. It's this concept. That's right. That's the feeling. Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect that he would be able to find a point of compatibility in the intertwining attacks of the wood spirits. It was as if he had an epiphany in an instant, gaining enlightenment from the changes in the laws of certain things. How rare! While enjoying every attack of the wood spirits, Lin Feng became more and more relaxed. However, he became more and more hesitant. He was afraid that this feeling would suddenly disappear. This would definitely be a huge loss for him, compared to the invisible benefits of entering the central region. Now, he had already picked up a treasure that was extremely suitable for him before entering the treasure trove. The 3rd spear. The 3rd spear that's even stronger than the storm spear art. Lin Feng deeply felt this concept. He was very clear in his heart. The longer he comprehended it, the deeper his understanding, and the faster he could master this 3rd wood carving. At that time, his strength as a god of war would be able to reach a higher level. Time continued to pass. Hours after hours, days after days. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. If it were an ordinary person, they would probably have collapsed from exhaustion. Even if they didn't use up their energy, just this kind of extreme battle would already exhaust their physical strength and energy. However, Lin Feng didn't show any signs of weakness. Compared to the first 2 hours of the battle, he couldn't feel any difference at all. Of course, this was related to the abnormal body condensed from the phoenix's blood, but more importantly, Lin Feng's willpower and temperament. It determined his ability to concentrate. Is it like this? No, it should be like this. It's still not right. It should be like this. Lin Feng muttered to himself and entered a state of epiphany. He executed the storm spear art again and again, as if he was comprehending something. His eyes were blurred, and his movements were like a conditioned reflex. However, if one looked carefully, the storm spear art actually had a slight change. It seemed to be a kind of transformation, a kind of distortion. It was as if he had turned from one staircase to another. Although they were on the same level, there was a difference between the upper and lower levels. It was completely different. A brand new spear art. In his mind, a figure kept appearing and executing, simulating every attack and every defense. Lin Feng's mind was perfectly focused. The danger accompanied the attacks of the wood spirits didn't decrease at all. However, with these hard-working wood spirits as his sparring partners, Lin Feng was able to comprehend the concept of wood carvings with 300% efficiency and create his own spear art. His comprehension was extremely astonishing. If Ding Hong saw it, he would definitely be shocked. He had immersed himself in these 7 wood carvings for decades and had only created the first 2 moves of the Sun Dragon spear art. He hadn't even fully unleashed the concept of the second move, let alone the third move. He didn't have any clue. However, Lin Feng, in a short period of time, he could actually comprehend the true essence of the third move. How terrifying. I understand. 7 wood carvings. Each move is connected to the previous move. The Sun Dragon spear art's hard force turned into soft force, forming the Storm Spear art. And the Storm Spear art's entanglement concept turned into the gathering concept, forming this third move. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. The blurry figure in his mind seemed to slowly become clearer, from hazy to clear. Bit by bit, it focused in front of his eyes and became clearer and clearer. He saw the real spear, the third move. Clang! Lin Feng's wrist shook. The nightmare demon spear in his hand was like a dragon's roar. Go! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. As the image in his mind became clearer, the third move landed in his heart and completely released it with his body. He had fought with these wood spirits for a full 10 days. All the accumulated resentment accumulated, and at this moment, it completely erupted. Boom! It was like a bolt of lightning descending. Facing the attacks from all directions, Lin Feng didn't dodge at all. As the milky white energy gathered, it formed flood dragons that soared into the sky. There were a total of 9 of them. Each flood dragon had an extremely explosive power. It was even more powerful than the Sun Dragon spear art. In an instant, pa, the countless branches that came at him turned into nothingness and completely shattered. The 9 white flood dragons exploded from their scattered positions and gathered together like 9 dragons surrounding the moon. They instantly condensed and formed an extremely terrifying force. Rumble. A white pillar of light condensed. The 9 white flood dragons condensed into an astonishingly thick white flood dragon. It shot straight up into the sky. There were no wood spirits in front of him. However, the spear energy formed by the white flood dragons was indeed extremely terrifying. It pierced through like a sharp arrow, sweeping everything in its path. After flying for a few hundred feet, it landed on a thick dark green tree trunk and exploded. Boom! Although it didn't kill the wood spirit, it severely injured it. How powerful! I've tolerated you for a long time. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. His eyes were filled with light. If he wanted to, he could use the storm spear art to completely exhaust the wood spirit's energy in these 10 days. He hadn't made a move all this time because he was waiting for this moment. Third move, complete comprehension. There was no need to show mercy. With his newly created spear art, Lin Feng started a massacre, giving them a taste of their own medicine. This third spear strike was comprehended and created from the combined attacks of the wood spirits. Finally, he used it to deal with the wood spirits. Not only can it be used in group battles, but it can also be used as the main attack. The third move's defense isn't as good as the second move's, and it's slightly weaker in terms of control. However, the attack, it's a complete victory. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was extremely satisfied. For the current him, this third spear was the perfect complement. The 9 Flood Dragon's scattered attacks were comparable to the Sun Dragon spear art. The final move was far stronger than the second move. It was definitely his strongest and most domineering move. Since it's like 9 Flood Dragons attacking together, I'll call it the 9 Flood Dragon spear art. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. His eyes shone brightly. The Nightmare Demon spear in his hand didn't show any hesitation as it pierced through. The 9 White Flood Dragons seemed to have intelligence as they roared. The slaughter had begun. It took a full 4 hours. Although he had comprehended the 9 Flood Dragon spear art, and his strength had increased greatly. However, it was not an easy task to pass through the Wood Spirit Grand Formation. There were a total of 26 Wood Spirits. The 23 Wood Spirits guarding the front weren't hard to deal with. Although it was hard to get close, with the power of the 9 Flood Dragon spear art, just the spear energy alone could cause great destruction. The truly troublesome ones were the last 3 powerful wood spirits. One was Star Sea State level 7, one was Star Sea State level 8, and one was Star Sea State level 9. Compared to the Star Sea State level 8 Gomeng Witch race, they were only stronger. If I didn't comprehend the third move, it would be harder to pass through this with spirit formation. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Including the wood spirit he killed before, he obtained a total of 27 wood spirit hearts. Although it took a lot of effort, the harvest was still shocking. Most importantly, there were no more secrets in the central area. The guards were gone. The purple mist shrouded the area, emitting a mysterious power and halo. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stepped in. Instantly, it was as though he entered a purple heaven. The scene in front of him changed rapidly. His heartbeat sped up. The density of spirit chi in the surroundings was shocking. It was even better than outside. With a shocking power, it was as though he had entered a whole new world. It was as though he was in chaos. This place is... Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Stepping in this world, he felt as though he was walking on clouds. The purple light in front of him gradually dimmed. As he slowly moved forward, the secret hidden in this spirit chi land, suddenly, it appeared in front of him. That is, Lin Feng's eyes widened. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 525. 2 passageways. They were like passageways that led to the sky. One was blue, and the other was red. The entrance of the passageway was extremely wide, just like the heavenly gate. Not to mention humans. Even the sorcerer tribe would look like a small dot standing at the entrance. Tiny existences, deep and profound. The entrances of the 2 passageways seemed to be open and closed, emitting a dense fog. The blue and red colors merged together, just like the natural compatibility between a man and a woman. They merged together, intertwined, and instantly condensed into a purple fog. With the entrance of the passageway as the center, it spread out in all directions like dense clouds. So this is where the purple fog comes from. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he came to a sudden realization. The purple fog did not have any spiritual energy, but the blue fog and the red fog were rather rich in energy. The combination of the two did not weaken the spiritual energy. Instead, it was extremely compatible, causing the density of the spiritual energy to multiply. It was as if they were a match made in heaven. With the entrance of the passageway as the center, the density of the spiritual energy spread out in a circle and gradually weakened. The influence of the energy of these two passageways is limited. The purple fog outside is like gravity, condensing and not dissipating. Therefore, it formed the unique region of the central district. Lin Feng nodded gently, and all his questions were answered. The spiritual energy of this land of spiritual energy was emitted by the purple fog here. Just like the original residents of the Gomang sorcerer tribe outside, the spiritual energy passed through the holes and formed an excellent place for cultivation. Perhaps the origin of the purple swamp is related to the purple fog. Lin Feng pondered. If that's the case, where did the red swamp in the deepest part come from? Lin Feng pondered and shook his head. After all, this was just his guess, and it might not be the truth. Looking at the two strange passageways in the sky, Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he was instantly curious. Let's go ahead and take a look. Just as he had estimated, the closer he was to the passageway in the sky, the denser the spiritual energy was. It was very condensed. Walking out of the passageway in the sky, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The density of the spiritual energy here was almost comparable to the cultivation realm in the green smoke secret realm. If he cultivated here, it would undoubtedly be twice the result with half the effort. But what's in these two tunnels? Lin Feng's eyes flickered. To be able to emit such a strange mist, what was inside? What secrets did it hold? Standing in front of the entrance of the passage, Lin Feng looked inside. Even with his eyesight, he couldn't see anything, and his sense of aura was completely blocked. This place was like a mysterious and unknown territory, making one's heart itch unbearably. So big, Lin Feng exhaled deeply. Raising his head to look at the sky, he could feel the heavenly might of the sky tunnel. He felt like an insignificant existence. The blue passageway gave off a feeling of surging vitality. It was like the blue of the ocean, but also like the blue of the clouds on a clear day. He felt as if he was bathed in warmth, like a spring breeze. But the red tunnel, the power of destruction. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Standing in front of the red tunnel, he felt a heavy sense of oppression. His heart was beating violently. The red in front of his eyes was a bloody red, a red that looked like hell. It was heart-wrenching. The red mist emitted from the entrance of the passageway gave him an inexplicable sense of horror, as if his blood was boiling. The aura was filled with killing intent. So strange. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. The blue and red formed a sharp contrast. It was like a fork in the road for people to choose. If it was before, Lin Feng wouldn't have chosen either path. He would have just cultivated on the spot. Not only was it safe, but it was also extremely efficient. But now, with enough starstones, Lin Feng wasn't worried about his cultivation speed. The density of spirit chi was comparable to the cultivation realm. It was enough to make any warrior in Green Smoke City excited. But to him, it was useless. Absorbing starstones, the increase of his star power wasn't any worse than cultivation, and the increase of his strength was twice as fast as the increase of his star power, especially after his strength increased from the 4th rank to the 5th rank. The speed of his cultivation soared again. Since I'm here, I can't not enter. Lin Feng smiled slightly. After spending so much effort to enter this place, if he didn't explore it, how could he face himself? But should he enter the blue passageway or the red one? Safe first, then dangerous. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he quickly made a decision. He was relying on his intuition, and it depended on his luck. He had a good feeling about the blue passageway, which was obviously better than the red one. He should explore the blue passageway, which seemed to be safe. He would prepare more and gain more experience before entering the red passageway. Let's go. Lin Feng smiled faintly and stepped into the passageway. In an instant, he disappeared, outside the purple mist. No way, they're all dead? Qi Yang's eyes widened. There were so many terrifyingly powerful wood spirits, but Lindigo killed them all alone. Qi was dumbfounded. 10 whole days. This battle is too crazy. Wei Hai heaved a sigh of relief. He couldn't believe it. This was definitely the longest battle he had ever seen. Judging from the traces of the battle, the winner was undoubtedly Lin Feng. Lin Gu entered the purple area. Wei Xian pointed ahead, her eyes dazzling. Don't disturb him. If there's any danger inside, we might drag Lin Feng down, Wei Hai said seriously. Everyone nodded. Sect leader, look. Qi Yang's eyes widened, and he pointed into the distance. Instantly, Wei Hai and the others looked over. They took a deep breath, and their expressions changed greatly. It was a striped tree with a trunk that was a few hundred meters long. Its thick trunk was close to 50 meters in diameter. It was quite huge, but now it was fragmented, and there were holes everywhere. There was no sign of life, and it fell to the ground. Striped sycamore tree, Chi Yu said with a trembling voice. There's actually such a big striped sycamore tree. Wei Hai kept shaking his head. He just broke through. This should be a star C state level 9 striped sycamore tree. Qi Yang stroked the stripes on the tree trunk. His chest kept rising and falling, and his heart was beating extremely fast. Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads in dismay. Everyone was almost numb to Lin Feng's abnormal strength. Lin Feng's strength was bottomless. Uncle Hai, don't we want these with spirit remains? Wei Xian asked curiously. In that instant, everyone's eyes lit up and their breathing quickened. This. Wei Hai looked at the scattered with spirit remains in shock. He felt as if his heart was about to stop beating. Although the remains weren't worth much, these with spirits were all star C state level 3 and above. There were even star C state level 9 existences. Although they didn't have the most expensive with spirit heart, collecting these remains and selling them would be extremely valuable. Just that striped sycamore tree alone was worth tens of thousands of soul spirit coins. To Lin Feng, perhaps he didn't care, but to Fengyang Valley, it was an existence with a sky-high price. We're rich, sect leader, Qiang said excitedly. It should be Lin Gu who specially left it for us, Qi Yu said. Wei Hai smiled with relief. His old face was full of smiles as he sighed softly. I'm afraid our Fengyang Valley will never be able to repay what we owe him. Everyone nodded. Whether it was to them or to Fengyang Valley, Lin Feng's kindness was too great. Since he ate the meat, he had to let others drink some soup. Even if Xian Air and the rest didn't contribute at all, they still had a share. Lin Feng wasn't a calculative person. Entering the blue passage was like entering a heaven with surging vitality. It was indeed a path that led to the sky. So beautiful. Lin Feng couldn't help but praise. It was as if he was walking on clouds. That feeling was extremely strange. He wasn't floating in the air, but on the ground. But there was nothing under his feet. There was only an indigo blue area. This place seemed to be in the air, but also seemed to be at the bottom of the sea. The pure light blue color gave people a very warm feeling. Their hearts seemed to have calmed down. In this world, it was very quiet and wonderful. The faint mist was filled with a warm aura. One could feel themselves and every part of their body more intimately. A good place to nourish one's mind. If I were to comprehend the cultivation manual here, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. Lin Feng smiled faintly. His state of mind was very calm. All of his worries seemed to have been thrown away. It was as if only he was left. I wonder what's so special about this place. Lin Feng looked around, but didn't find anything special. After walking for a while, it was as if he was touring the Sky Manor. Although he felt strange and comfortable, he still felt that something was missing. The hidden secret. There should be an answer in front. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Although it was boundless, the passage here went straight into the depths. It was like a rainbow that led to the sky. It was impossible to hide the secret on the left and right. It was like the mud beside a straight road. It didn't match at all. Bit by bit, he walked slowly. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. A strange place. Lin Feng smiled. Suddenly, he thought of the other red passage. Lin Feng's eyes couldn't help but brighten. I wonder, what kind of scenery would it be? He was curious, but Lin Feng immediately threw it to the back of his mind. Because at this moment, he seemed to have reached his destination. There was a huge barrier that looked like a wall of light. The surroundings were filled with chaotic colors. It was as if there was nothingness, and also as if it didn't exist. There was only a light blue light door in front of him. It was like a giant's palm that blocked the intersection. Strange. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. This blue light door was about 10 meters tall. It was bigger than him, but it was much smaller than the entrance of the passage outside. It sat in the clouds and flickered with a faint luster, adding a sense of mystery. This door, how do I open it? Lin Feng frowned slightly. On the door, there was a strange halo color engraved with a special pattern. He didn't know what material it was made of. He reached out to touch it and felt the faint blue energy. It was very warm, but, however, it blocked his path forward. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Suddenly, that is? Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. As far as the eye could see, there was a circular halo embedded in the center of the blue light gate. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 5:26. The halo wasn't big, but it had a special energy. It was very compatible with the patterns on the blue door of light. If one didn't look carefully, it would be hard to notice. In the center of the strange spiral pattern, there was a unique circular existence. Lin Feng's eyes shone slightly as he gently placed his hand on it. Pong! A powerful force bounced back. It carried a strong airflow, and the unique energy was filled with pure strength. It seems like I was hit by the wind from the fist. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly as he felt a little curious. This force didn't have any evil intentions. It was like the guards outside the manor, blocking him outside the door. Déjà vu. It's very similar to wood energy, but it's not completely. It carries the aura of life, and it's somewhat similar to my rebirth flame. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully as he carefully observed the circular halo. The faint halo emitted a transparent color, as if it was made of several layers of glass. The craftsmanship was quite exquisite. Lin Feng was sure that there was no similar existence in Greensmoke City. Clearly, it was because of the uniqueness and mysteriousness of this place. First, it was the strange insects, and now it's this mysterious land of spirit chi. This swamp is really interesting. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. He vaguely felt that his landing in this chaotic mountain range was coincidental and inevitable. But now, he couldn't see through the mysteries. Oh, how should I go in? Lin Feng touched his chin and pondered. He stared at the circular halo. Other than the transparent color, he seemed to see something else, but it was very blurry. Clearly, if he wanted to enter this door that led to the sky, this blue halo was the key. Strange energy, and this strange structure. There's no warning, but Lin Feng had so many questions in his mind as he stared at the blue halo. His expression froze, then froze again. Something seemed to be reflected from the transparent halo, and it went straight into his mind. Inexplicably, Lin Feng's pupils dilated. That's right, wood spirits. Are the wood spirits guarding outside really just greedy for the rich spirit chi? Could there be some kind of connection between the two? There must be something fishy going on. Along the way, other than wood spirits, there were only immortal fruits and immortal herbs. This place was like a paradise that stood aloof from worldly affairs. Wait a minute. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. The energy within this blue halo is similar to that of the wood spirits. Could it be? Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Light flickered in his hand as he took out a sparkling heart of wood spirit. Level 3 Cosmic Sea State. Hua! A suction force came. It was the suction force he felt when he obtained the wood spirit heart. The feeling of attraction was extremely clear, exactly the same as expected. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he instantly placed the wood spirit's heart into the blue halo. In an instant, as if it had entered a bottomless abyss, it was instantly sucked in. A valuable wood spirit heart had turned into nothingness in the blink of an eye. There was not even a trace of it left behind. Lin Feng's brows were slightly furrowed, but his eyes instantly lit up. It's lit up. Lin Feng's heart was unusually moved as he stared intently at the blue light circle. The transparent light circle that he had been looking at earlier now had a faint blue trace on its periphery. It was like a small half of a circular arc. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice it. The blue arc was about 4% of the halo's length. I understand. Lin Feng hesitated slightly before clapping his hands. Realization dawned. Just like the gathering of energy, if this door wanted to open, it clearly needed to absorb 100% of the energy. Soon, Lin Feng took out a level 4 cosmic sea state and a level 5 wood spirit heart and placed them into the blue halo. As expected, they were absorbed again. However, this time, the blue arc was growing extremely quickly. After absorbing 3 wood spirit hearts, the blue arc was only a quarter of the halo's length. As expected, Lin Feng smiled faintly. There had to be a reason for its existence. The wood spirits in this mysterious place, surrounded by purple clouds, were so faded. There was naturally something that suited them. Now, he had clearly found a part of it, one after the other. Level 4, level 5, and even level 6 with spirit hearts were all absorbed. Finally, the blue light shone brightly. The blue arc covered the entire halo, and in an instant, an extremely powerful energy began to fluctuate violently. Lin Feng stood quietly on the spot as he watched the blue halo rapidly spin and emit a sparkling luster. That strange energy seemed to have turned into a snake pattern that penetrated the patterns on the door, forming bits and pieces of energy flow. It seemed as though the blue door had come alive. It was extremely strange. Pa, pa, pa. Wisps of ripples spread out and slowly retreated to the surroundings along with the lines. The blue halo in the center of the door expanded rapidly, forming a bright light blue entrance like a tunnel. The exit appeared. It's indeed here. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Although he had spent close to 10 with spirit hearts, it was worth it to be able to open this blue door. He could finally enter and see what was inside. Let's go. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stepped in. The door flashed and instantly disappeared. Hashtag yin %. Hashtag %, asterisk %. There was a strange sound that sounded like an ethereal cave. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but a bitter smile appeared on his face. Clearly, it was some language of this mysterious place. However, he couldn't understand it. This language is really a big problem. Lin Feng sighed. Previously, in the Phoenix realm, he couldn't understand the language of the Phoenix race. Now that he was here, he couldn't understand this strange language either. It was indeed quite troublesome for him. If I have the chance, I should learn a few more languages. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. This thought only flashed in his mind for a moment, because to Lin Feng, now wasn't the time to think about this. Now, he had entered a magical place. The mist was rather dense. Outside the blue door, the spirit chi density was similar to the purple mist outside, but here, it was denser, especially that unique energy which made him feel as if he was bathing in a hot spring full of warmth. His body was constantly growing at an extremely fast speed, almost comparable to his current cultivation speed of absorbing star power. Most importantly, the energy contained a powerful life force. It was as if, I'll know when I try. Lin Feng closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. Instead of daydreaming, he might as well test it. He used the familiar human rank level 4 Lost Dragon Star Art and activated the Astral Treasure Staff in his hand. Red star power suddenly fell from the sky, densely covering the Astral Treasure Staff and penetrating into his body. The cultivation speed was extremely amazing, and Lin Feng soon immersed himself in it. The star power drives this special energy and fuses it. It has a strong vitality, similar to the wood spirit's power. This energy can double the speed of body strengthening. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but it was very similar to absorbing starstones. Cultivating here was faster than absorbing star stones when he was in the level 4-star sea state. Compared to now, it was only a little worse. The most important thing was, here, it didn't consume star stones. It was a place where one could cultivate for a long time. And after absorbing this energy, my cells vaguely changed slightly. Lin Feng looked inside his body and felt the slight changes. Cultivating in this extremely quiet place allowed him to concentrate more. Not only could he feel the surroundings clearly and freely, but he could also feel his own body clearly. Lin Feng was fully aware of the faint changes in his cells as he kept absorbing and cultivating. Energy with vitality. This should be a unique with energy. For with martial gods or celestial spirit masters, this place, it's definitely a cultivation treasure land. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Even for other warriors, it was infinitely beneficial. This energy had a strong vitality, which could make a warrior's body extremely tough and resilient, just like the wood spirit. But it has little effect on me. Lin Feng thought lightly. His body had already been modified by the phoenix blood, which was much stronger than this wood energy and more compatible with him. Compared to the phoenix blood, the wood energy here was undoubtedly much weaker. It paled in comparison. But it's better than nothing. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Something was better than nothing. No one would dislike their own body for being too strong. This kind of energy with strong vitality and resilience was something that many people couldn't get even if they wanted it. Wait, Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. He wasn't a wood martial artist, but Wing was a wood spirit. Guan, his left eye flashed. A beam of red and green light shone as Lin Feng released his wings in an instant. Instantly, "Damn, boss, where is this place?" Wing's voice was filled with extreme excitement. Even his long-lost nature was revealed. Thousands of branches and leaves danced in the air. Wing's expression was filled with joy. The surrounding energy surged madly, making Wing feel like a pauper who had entered a mountain of gold. He couldn't wait to bring all the treasures home. He absorbed rapidly. He didn't even need to move, but his cultivation speed was already shocking. Every inch of the tree trunk absorbed and condensed energy. Looking at the happy and crazy Wing, Lin Feng smiled and nodded. The faster Wing's strength improved, the more help it would be to him. "How do you feel, Wing?" Lin Feng asked with a smile. "It's wonderful, boss. My cultivation speed is 10 times faster than usual," Wing said, unable to contain his joy. "Then you should focus on your cultivation." Lin Feng smiled. Then, he strode forward and continued to explore this area. To him, this place wasn't enough for him to stop. There seemed to be endless unknowns and secrets in front of him. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with bright light. "Continue to explore. I finally sent my mother-in-law away. I'm so tired, I'll send it to you tomorrow. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 527. Moving forward. Lin Feng didn't look sideways, his expression calm. Here, there seemed to be endless mysteries, but let's see what's at the end first. Lin Feng's thoughts were firm. It was like opening a secret manual, skimming through it, and then slowly tasting it. Such a long way. Lin Feng sped forward as he thought. This road was very long, as though it was an endless road. He was moving at 1/3 of his speed, but he still couldn't see the end after an hour. One must know how shocking his current speed was. Could it be that there is no end to this path? Lin Feng suddenly had this thought, but he immediately rejected it. Because in front of him, that familiar blue light appeared again. His body seemed to be bathed in warmth. Lin Feng stopped and looked up at the second blue door. It was extremely majestic and refreshing. The chi here was more condensed and shocking, full of extreme pressure. The second door? Exactly the same. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Other than the surface area and patterns, it was no different from the first door. Most importantly, in the center of this blue door, there was also a blue halo. As the door grew bigger, so did it. It seemed to mean, I'm afraid I need more with spirit hearts. Lin Feng said. One look, and one could tell that this wasn't the first time he encountered such a thing. Instantly, a star sea state level 4 with spirit heart was taken out. Lin Feng focused his eyes and immediately put it into the halo. Wah! A powerful suction came. Lin Feng's expression was calm. As though falling into a bottomless abyss, the wood spirit heart disappeared without a trace. The transmission of energy was much weaker than the first door. Just a trace. Within the blue ring of light, the transparent light formed an almost imperceptible blue trace at this moment. It was almost impossible to see with the naked eye, but there was indeed. As expected, Lin Feng nodded lightly, not surprised. The first door used a star sea state level 4 with spirit heart. The blue arc took up about 1/10 of the area. But now it's not even 1%. The difference is too great. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he slowly stood up. Looking at the towering door, his mind was filled with thoughts. Instead, he was considering the gains and losses. Should I go back and explore the first area, or should I risk everything and open this door? After a long while, it's difficult. Lin Feng's eyes were burning with helplessness. The best with spirit heart he had was only star sea state level 9. In other words, in terms of energy, it was 32 times that of a star sea state with spirit heart. If the heart of wood spirit required to open the door was taken as the total energy value, looking at the big picture through a tube, all the wood spirit hearts he currently possessed were probably still lacking by a little bit. And this little bit would be fatal. That's the only way. Lin Feng shook his head. Although he was quite curious about the world behind the second light door, he couldn't force it at the moment. Let's go see what's so special about this place. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he smiled. They could only settle for the next best thing. So it's like this. Lin Feng shook his head helplessly, carefully exploring the surroundings. It was completely out of his expectations. There were small light doors everywhere in this mysterious area, just like countless small rooms in a large hall. The most cruel thing was, every small light door had a blue halo. In other words, if he wanted to enter any place, he had to pay the price of a wood spirit heart. And from the size of the blue halo, they were all between the two huge light doors. The price to enter was not small. Luckily, I didn't enter the second blue light door. Lin Feng felt lucky. Even if he had enough wood spirit hearts to enter the second area, the remaining wood spirit hearts wouldn't be enough to enter any of the small rooms. It was as if he had entered a treasure mountain, only to find that every cave in this treasure mountain was locked. And now, he had a lot of choices. We'll be inside. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with curiosity. He casually found a small light door. The blue halo was about twice the size of the first door. The wood spirit hearts weren't much, but it wasn't little either. Since he was here, he naturally couldn't compromise. Pa! The wood spirit heart was absorbed, and the small light door opened. Lin Feng immediately stepped in. It was a green world. The rich aura was completely different from the outside world. Lin Feng looked at the huge tree in front of him in shock, as if he was suffocating. What a huge tree! Just the roots at the bottom of the tree had a diameter of several thousand meters, and it was very complicated. The tree trunk extended upwards, and the branches seemed to form unique wood spirits. The spirals intertwined with each other and were filled with rich vitality. Every leaf and every branch was filled with rich life energy. This tree was alive. Gently shaking, Lin Feng seemed to hear the huge tree's voice. It was a unique language, and it sounded familiar. It's the same. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he instantly understood. It was exactly the same as the voice that he heard when he first entered the sky passage. Looking up at the huge tree, Lin Feng suddenly felt small. It was as if he was looking up at a giant. He couldn't even see the top of the huge tree. So, the wood spirits can be this terrifying. Lin Feng was greatly shocked. Fortunately, the huge tree wasn't hostile to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive no matter how many lives he had. The aura emitted by the huge tree was already shockingly powerful. But to it was like breathing. Wait, it's aura. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. feeling the power of the huge tree. He actually felt his heart palpitate. It was as if a familiar power was fluctuating. Gently pressing his hand to his chest, Lin Feng closed his eyes. The sound of his heartbeat was so clear. It's the life spirit, Lin Feng thought. The life spirit was resonating. The energy emitted by the huge tree resonated with the life spirit. There seemed to be something between them. What was it? It's the way of time. Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. They were shining brightly. Looking at the huge tree, every time it breathed, its aura was rich with the power of the way of time. It contained the truth of heaven and earth. It didn't need to be deliberately used. It was as if it was the incarnation of the way of time. In the tree patterns, unique patterns flashed, showing the traces of the huge tree's age. Shrouded in this aura, Lin Feng felt as if his life spirit had returned to its original state, to its most primitive state. It was like a baby returning to its mother's arms. It was extremely warm and gentle. Even his heart felt warm. It was a feeling he had never felt before. Lin Feng was stunned. Looking at the huge tree with a blurred gaze, he entered a strange state. In the air, every time the huge tree breathed, the surrounding space was completely enveloped, forming a unique vortex that seemed to distort space. That kind of power seemed to be nurturing the simplest and most direct truth of heaven and earth. But it was so difficult. Around Lin Feng's body, a faint aura of heaven and earth condensed. It rotated around like a group of small hurricanes. This was the attribute of his life spirit, the way of time. There was a resonance between them, but there was also a huge difference. The way of time in Lin Feng's body and in the giant tree's body was like the difference between a drop of water and an ocean. They couldn't be compared at all, but their composition was the same. Time seems to have stopped. I can use my own strength to trigger the way of time. If it can, I can naturally do it too. Lin Feng murmured softly. His expression was slightly dazed. In his mind, he could vaguely feel that kind of touch. It was as if it was so close that he could reach out and touch it. It was a kind of skill, an application of the way of time. He could definitely master it. Lin Feng had an epiphany. It was like cultivating the spear move, but he couldn't find that point. But now, someone had completely displayed that move in front of him, causing Lin Feng to be enlightened and completely understand. Lin Feng's comprehension ability was already extremely shocking. However, because his life spirit had been combined with the Phoenix life plate, he had been unable to improve it. This caused Lin Feng's life spirit to remain at that level, unable to comprehend a higher level of skill, or rather, power. And now, although the door was still closed, a window had been opened. To people with ordinary comprehension ability, this window was just a little bit of light. It was useless. But to Lin Feng, it triggered his entire body and ignited the flame that had always been hidden in his heart. Completely ignited, a single strand of hair moved the entire body. Rich heaven and earth chi circled around Lin Feng. The life spirit attracted the power of the way of time, forming a unique space. Lin Feng stood quietly as if in a daze, but he was constantly comprehending that power, comprehending every natural breathing of the giant tree and the changes in its aura. Perhaps these techniques were too profound and far exceeded the range of Lin Feng's strength. But, returning to the origin, the giant tree's power had long returned to its original state. Even if Lin Feng only comprehended a little, it was already a great benefit to him. Time continued to pass. 10 days, half a month in this strange space, Lin Feng was constantly comprehending and absorbing. He was like a small sapling, absorbing the nutrients of nature and growing healthily under the nurturing of a giant tree. Apart from the state of comprehension, Lin Feng didn't realize that his body was also unknowingly changing. A strange energy surged into his body as if it was imperceptibly influencing him. It was a kind of energy that seemed familiar. Finally, pong, an astonishing aura exploded. Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with sparkling light. I understand. Author's note: I've had a good sleep. I'm exhausted these past few days. There are still 2 more updates for today. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 528. Deceleration Space. Lin Feng's eyes were deep. A shocking aura spread out in the blink of an eye, affecting the whole body with a bit of condensed power. It was like a fulcrum that changed everything around it. The air changed in an instant, as if it was distorted, forming a violent whirlpool that spread out rapidly. Bang! The rich energy of heaven and earth seemed to explode, but it disappeared in an instant. Failed. Very good. Lin Feng clenched his right fist, and a satisfied expression flashed across his face. The deceleration space was not completed, but the failure this time was not the fault of the battle. It was because the power clashed. Lin Feng looked at the giant tree. At every moment, the giant tree was casually breathing in and changing the flow of time around it. The same deceleration space. It was because of this that he suddenly had an epiphany. The difference between his deceleration space and the giant tree was like heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. Just the power used by the giant tree was several times stronger than his. The time it changed was many times stronger than his. Moreover, it did not use its full strength at all. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He could not see it before, but now he completely understood. The deceleration here should be about 10 times. Lin Feng smiled slightly. In other words, 10 days of training in this area was only equivalent to 1 day in the outside world. Most importantly, this was done in the deceleration space. It was quite incredible. Once the deceleration space was used, the speed of people and things in the space would be reduced. The enemy who was limited in the deceleration space could naturally feel it. Their speed and movements would change, as if there was a layer of heavy shackles on their body. Lin Feng was very clear about this point. But now, the enemy was not affected at all by the deceleration space. In fact, the flow of time in the deceleration space was changed. In a battle, this was quite frightening. It was like being in a situation, but not knowing it was a situation. Being in an illusion was like being in reality, and it was easy to be controlled by others. And the change was far more than that. The original deceleration space was cast, but now it is activate. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. The two of them had completely different concepts. Using it drained one's physical strength, which was also the strength of one's life spirit. There was a limit to it. Every time it was used, it would be drained. However, guiding was like borrowing strength. The deceleration space just now was provided by him, but it was only a one-time power. It was like a fulcrum prying up the entire space. It was a one-time investment in exchange for a permanent use. It was like using an iron rod to prop up a large plank. As long as the iron rod was not damaged, the plank would not collapse. The original deceleration space had a time limit, and now it could be said to be endless. It's not just consumption. There's even a possibility of advancement. The deceleration space will increase as the life soul increases. Increase the power and expand the range. Lin Feng nodded, his eyes shining brightly. That was merely an improvement in combat. The greatest help the deceleration space provided him this time was not those, but cultivate. The flow of time will no longer be affected. I can use my secret doppelganger to cast it and slow down the cultivation environment. In other words, the cultivation speed of my main body can be doubled. Lin Feng clenched his fists and felt a trace of excitement. To him, this was definitely the greatest breakthrough. A full doubling of cultivation speed. Although it was only beneficial to his main body and the war god's cultivation, but it was already quite rare. Seize the time to cultivate. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. If it's as I expected, there should be a time limit for cultivating here. I've already spent a lot of time comprehending just now. I can't waste any more time. Lin Feng exhaled softly and immediately sat cross-legged. The density of spirit energy here was slightly lower than the sky passage outside. Obviously, it was because the giant tree had absorbed too much. But the time ratio is 10:1. One day here is equivalent to 10 days outside. The cultivation speed is much faster than the sky passage. Lin Feng smiled faintly and instantly closed his eyes. Using the astral treasure staff to guide the astral power, Lin Feng was skillfully using the lost dragon star art. Suddenly, what? Lin Feng's head shook and his expression changed instantly. The third dot of light on the phoenix natal plate had lit up at some point in time. Although it was a faint light, like a firefly, it was impossible to reach. However, compared to the dim gold fate astrolabe and earth fate astrolabe, they were completely different. It was like one was still standing at the starting line, while the other had already taken the first step. The third light spot was the wood natal chart. It's a very weak energy. It's insignificant, but the wood natal chart really lit up. Lin Feng was extremely excited and couldn't hide the joy in his heart. The Phoenix natal chart had become a pain in his heart. It had stopped at the Star River level and couldn't be improved. It directly caused his martial god and sky spirit master to be stuck at the Star River level. There was only one word to describe it: miserable. Although 1/10 of the water natal chart was saturated in the 100 falls, there was still 9/10 that couldn't be obtained. In other words, it was useless even if there was 1/10,000th of it that wasn't saturated. Only when one of the Earth natal charts was completely lit up could the Phoenix natal chart truly advance. Originally, he had placed his hopes on the water natal chart, but now there was another layer of hope. This place is indeed related to the wood spirit. Lin Feng gradually calmed down and thought to himself. He thought about every minute and every second that he had entered this place. However, he didn't find anything special. Basically, he spent all his time in enlightenment and didn't cultivate at all. How did the wood natal chart absorb energy? Could it be that giant tree? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In this space, only the giant tree was filled with mysterious energy that couldn't be understood. That level of existence had already exceeded the scope of his estimation. It wasn't strange for the giant tree to have such divine power. Phew! Lin Feng exhaled softly. Lin Feng closed his eyes and calmed his heart. He didn't cultivate. Instead, he observed his own body. The energy in the surroundings entered his body like water droplets entering a thin layer of paper. It carried a faint energy, which was very similar to the energy in the tunnel in the sky. However, there was another layer of existence that he couldn't see. The Phoenix natal chart flickered slightly. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it. It was faint, but it was real. As expected, it's because of this giant tree. Lin Feng completely understood now. When he was cultivating in the tunnel in the sky, the wood natal chart hadn't lit up yet. However, he was already at the starting line here. The biggest difference was the existence of this giant tree. There was no other reason. I wonder if cultivating can speed up the absorption? Lin Feng thought for a while and closed his eyes. Condensing the light of the star power, Lin Feng quickly entered the state of cultivation. The red star power was absorbed into his body through the astral treasure staff, increasing the number of stars in his body. However, Lin Feng didn't care about this. He focused all his attention on the changes of the wood natal chart. He didn't relax at all. However, the result was helplessness and disappointment. As expected, not everything can go according to one's will. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Although he was disappointed, it was within his expectations. If the Phoenix natal chart could be upgraded so easily, he wouldn't have to be so troubled. At least, the energy of this giant tree could be absorbed by itself, although the absorption speed was extremely slow. Forget it. I'll seize the time to cultivate. Lin Feng sighed softly and smiled bitterly. It was useless to force this kind of thing. It had long been preordained. When Lin Feng was about to close his eyes again, he felt the strange energy seeping into his skin. It carried the energy of the universe. Suddenly, the look in his eyes changed. As if he thought of something, his eyes kept flashing. Instantly, Lin Feng's heart beat faster. Maybe this is possible. Comprehending the star power has nothing to do with the energy of this giant tree. But what if I absorb the energy of the universe? Lin Feng's chest heaved up and down. He had a hunch that it was possible. The energy of the giant tree had merged with the energy of the universe. His Emperor Shun strategy could absorb it. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He clenched his fists. Actions were better than thoughts. Wah! Around Lin Feng's body, a white mist suddenly condensed. The seventh heaven of the second level was fully displayed. In a split second, the surrounding airflow became extremely fast. Lin Feng's entire body was immersed in the white mist. It was as if he was wrapped in a cocoon. In this place with dense spirit energy, the speed of cultivation was naturally very fast. And this, to Lin Feng, this was only secondary. The most important thing was the absorption of the energy of the giant tree. Got it. The speed is indeed much faster. Lin Feng only felt a burst of excitement. The dense energy of the giant tree went straight into his heart. The third light spot on the Phoenix natal chart lit up faintly. It wasn't that he couldn't see it clearly. This time, he was really absorbing it. The speed of absorption increased by thousands of times. Great! Lin Feng was ecstatic. It was different from the 100 Falls. Here, he could cultivate without any restrictions. Of course, he had to have the energy of the heart of Wood Spirit. But to him, obtaining the heart of Wood Spirit was too easy. Lin Feng had completely entered the state of cultivation. He had completely abandoned the star fusion art. To Lin Feng, improving the Phoenix natal chart was much more important than increasing the number of stars. After all, he didn't just cultivate the Tao of War. Although the energy of the giant tree that he absorbed by using Emperor Shun's energy was just a drop in the ocean for the Wood Spirit natal chart. But one had to know that the time ratio here was 10:1. Even if a foolish old man moved a mountain, so what? At least this was a path that he could see the end of. Finally, I found a way to upgrade the Phoenix natal chart. Lin Feng was filled with excitement. Perhaps this path would be very difficult, but to him, it was like opening a path in the dark sky. The phoenix in his heart would spread its wings and soar high sooner or later. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 529. Time passed very quickly during cultivation. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. But in the outside world, it was only 3 days. The cultivation had ended, but it had to end. Looking at the familiar scenery and the sky filled with warm colors, Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Just as he expected, there was a time limit in the world of the giant tree. But there'd a lot of time, at least more than 2 months. Lin Feng thought for a while. He still couldn't estimate it accurately. After all, he didn't know how long had passed when he comprehended the deceleration space. However, the cultivation that followed was a full 1 month. I still have a lot of Wood Spirit hearts. Let's try again. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Let's see how long each cultivation time is. Lin Feng nodded. This was very important to him. At least, he had an idea. The cultivation of Emperor Shun's Gang Qi had a very small increase in origin star power. Basically, it only increased the strength of his body. Originally, it was about the same as the star fusion art. But because of the Astral Treasure staff, the cultivation speed of the star fusion art had greatly increased. Needless to say, the speed of absorbing starstones far exceeded the Emperor Shun's Gang Qi. But no matter how little the Emperor Shun's Gang Qi increased the strength of his body, Lin Feng wouldn't use anything else. Now, the absorption of the giant tree's energy was more important than anything else. Moreover, no matter how little the Emperor Shun's Gang Qi increased the strength of his body, it was still relative. Cultivating in the world of the giant tree, with the 10:1 time ratio, the increase of the strength of his body was not much worse than absorbing starstones. Lin Feng knew which was more important. Now, everything had to make way for the illumination of the wood life astrolabe. My luck is really good. To be able to enter this sky passage there's always a way out. Lin Feng continued to cultivate, and the worry in his heart had lessened a lot. The lighting of the other Earth astrolabes was still unknown, but the Woodlife astrolabe was already in sight. But this place is really special. It seems to have an unusual relationship with the wood spirit. Lin Feng thought softly. Outside the purple mist. Is Lindigo all right? Wei Xian asked worriedly. Among everyone, she was the one who had the most confidence in Lin Feng's strength. However, she was also the one who was most worried about him. Don't worry, Xian. Brother Lin will be fine. Wei Hai nodded lightly and looked at Wei Xian with a bright gaze. How could he not know what was on Wei Xian's mind? That's right, little sister Xian. Lindigo is so powerful. How could anything happen to him? Chi Yu said with a smile. Wei Xian frowned, but for some reason, there seems to be something calling out to me. Why can't I feel it? Is it just your imagination, Xian? Wei Hai was stunned. Wei Xian shook her head, without any hesitation on her face. Qiang smiled at Wei Hai. Sect Master, you don't know this, but ever since the first day she started cultivating here, Xian has been hearing a voice calling out to her. This isn't the first time. Oh, Wei Hai nodded thoughtfully. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Hua! Lin Feng opened his eyes. Once again, he returned to the familiar sky passageway. This time, he was no longer confused. 10 days, 100 days in the giant tree world. Lin Feng nodded. After entering the giant tree world twice, including the first blue light door, there were only a few left of the 27 with spirit hearts. However, the best with spirit hearts of the 7th, 8th, and 9th level were still unused. The remaining with spirit hearts and this 7th level with spirit heart might not have enough energy to enter the giant tree world again. But it will be a waste to use the 8th or 9th level with spirit hearts. Lin Feng pondered for a moment. He didn't understand the language here. Although he didn't know the language, he had stayed in the sky passageway for so long and experienced it personally several times. This was especially true for the largest 9th stage with Spirit Heart. The energy it contained was more than enough to enter the world of the giant tree twice. All right, I might as well try something else. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. However, he was also curious. There are so many small rooms here, other than the giant tree world. What else could there be? Soon, Lin Feng found another small light door. There were so many small light doors here that one could bump into them with one's eyes closed. The reason why he had to search was to find a more suitable blue light ring that could accommodate the 9th level with Spirit Heart, so that it wouldn't be wasted. This one, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The blue light ring in front of him was 2 times bigger than the giant tree world he entered. However, in this area, it could only be considered average. Hua! Light flashed. The best with Spirit Heart of the 9th level star sea level was instantly absorbed. He didn't feel any heartache. Perhaps it was indeed expensive, but to Lin Feng, money only existed to increase his strength. He was a warrior, not a merchant. Xiao. The blue mark was like a brush, occupying 80% of the area. Almost. Lin Feng nodded lightly. Then, he took out the 7th level star sea level with Spirit Heart. Ordinary 3rd and 4th level with Spirit Hearts were too insignificant here. Instantly, the blue light ring was filled and light flashed. As the light ring spun and formed a resplendent light, the small light door opened. Lin Feng stepped in. Lin Feng was startled. He looked over, thinking that he had entered the wrong place. This place was no different from the giant tree world he had just entered. It was the same green world, and there was also an astonishingly tall giant tree. However, he calmed down and observed carefully, but it was different. This giant tree is bigger, so it should be stronger. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He couldn't detect the power of the giant tree, but the two of them were very similar. However, the shape and appearance of the 2 giant trees were extremely similar. They should be of the same species. The diameter of the roots of this giant tree was bigger than the previous one. As a wood spirit, it was easy to distinguish its strength. The spirit chi density here is much lower, Lin Feng thought. Obviously, it was being absorbed by this stronger giant tree. However, the effect of the deceleration space is better. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. If it was before, he definitely wouldn't be able to sense it correctly. But now, the deceleration space used by the giant tree was exactly the same as his. However, the effect was better. The spirit chi density is only about half of the previous one. But here, it has a deceleration effect of 30 times. Lin Feng nodded lightly. With the same cultivation time, cultivating here would be 50% more efficient than in the giant tree world. The improvement was quite shocking. However, there were gains and losses. The consumption of the wood spirit heart was also very high. If I have enough wood spirit hearts, cultivating here would be great. But without wood spirit hearts, the efficiency of cultivating here is not good. Lin Feng pondered, weighing the gains and losses. However, now that he was here, he naturally wouldn't waste time. Soon, Lin Feng closed his eyes. Whoosh! Skillfully operating the Emperor Shun's aura, a milky white aura surrounded his body. Lin Feng absorbed the weakened spirit chi with a calm expression. Although the growth of a single cultivation was weakened, the same 10 days of cultivation here was twice as long. And this extra time was not only for the body's cultivation time, also the absorption of the giant tree's energy. Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up, and his heart was shocked. The energy of the giant tree here was not only not weakened like the spirit chi, but had increased by 2 times. What's this? Lin Feng was a little surprised, but he soon understood. The energy of the giant tree was naturally produced by the giant tree. The more spirit chi the giant tree absorbed, the more energy it produced. And the most important thing was, it takes 3 times longer to absorb the energy of the giant tree than before. Lin Feng was overjoyed. The same 10 days in the world here was equivalent to 3 times the efficiency, plus the increase in the energy of the giant tree. In other words, the efficiency of absorbing the energy of the giant tree here was nearly 10 times that of the giant tree world. Very good. Lin Feng was full of fighting spirit. He was getting closer and closer to the path of the Phoenix Natal Plate's evolution. The goal was very clear. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. But to Lin Feng, it was a full 300 days of cultivation. The improvement was very shocking. In just a short month after entering this space passage, he had already walked 1/3 of the path from level 5 to level 6. That's it for this time. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although he still had a level 8-star sea state with Spirit Heart, but there was no need to use it immediately. Save it for next time, Lin Feng said softly. If I buy enough with Spirit Hearts, next time, I can enter the giant tree world with a bigger blue halo. The space deceleration effect is better, and the giant tree energy is more. Lin Feng had already made his decision. Efficiency was the most important. In the same 10 days, the giant tree energy he absorbed in the 2 spaces was nearly 10 times more. What a shocking difference in efficiency. And as the giant tree grew bigger and stronger, this multiplier would continue to increase until it reached an astonishing ratio. But before that, he had to have enough with Spirit Hearts. Just like the starlight back then, this was something he couldn't do without. Lin Feng smiled faintly and walked out of the space passage. Outside the purple mist. How did this happen? How did Xian Air suddenly disappear? Did she use the city return talisman to return to Green Smoke City? Impossible. Lin Feng hasn't come out yet. Xian Air can't go back. Then where did Xian Air go? Wei Hai, Qi Yang, and Qi were all very anxious. As though sitting on a carpet of needles, the 3 frowned. They were very worried. At this moment, in the purple mist, a faint light flashed. Lin Feng slowly stepped out. I'm out. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He was quite satisfied with this exploration. It could be said that it was a completely unexpected huge gain. But Lindigo, Qi saw Lin Feng come out from afar, as though she saw her savior, and hurriedly ran over. Not good. Xian Air is missing. What? Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 530. Looking at the anxious crowd, Lin Feng's expression became extremely solemn. The people in Windrise Valley obviously wouldn't joke about such a matter. Xian Air's disappearance was definitely very serious this time. What exactly happened? Tell me all the details slowly, Lin Feng said with a serious expression. Everyone quickly calmed down and recounted everything that had happened in detail. After long, while Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully with bright eyes. There has always been a voice calling out to Xian Air. Moreover, the voice calling out to her is getting louder and louder. Obviously, Xian Air's disappearance is closely related to this voice. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Lin Feng glanced at the purple mist and fell into deep thought. Others might not know, but he had experienced it deeply. When he held the wood spirit heart that day, he felt a slight attraction. However, Xian Air felt a call. Moreover, it was a strong call. The difference was huge. There was a high chance that the calling came from the mysterious sky passage. No one knew whether it was a blessing or a curse. As for Xian Air using the city return talisman to return to Green Smoke City, it was almost impossible. Even if she wanted to leave, Xian Air wouldn't have left without informing him. Her disappearance happened right before he came out. It was as if it was destined. Lin Feng shook his head. His heart was filled with doubts as he looked at the purple mist. Suddenly, Lin Feng's gaze changed. Wait, this purple mist. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. He saw that the color of the purple mist in front of him was gradually changing. The purple was fading, revealing bits of blue. Even the spirit Qi was weakening. Perhaps the change in color wasn't obvious, but he could clearly feel the change in the aura. This was the instinct of a warrior. I think I should know where Xian Air is. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. Where? Wei Hai and the other two were still confused. Lin Feng nodded lightly. Everyone, follow me. After saying this, Lin Feng strode forward and walked towards the central area shrouded in mist. Wei Hai and the others looked at each other. Although they were puzzled, they trusted Lin Feng very much and followed him. Wow, what a rich spiritual energy. Where is this place? Wei Hai, Qi Yang, and Qi were stunned. He had originally thought that the spiritual energy outside was already dense and astonishing enough. But he hadn't expected that the spiritual energy in the central region would be even denser. It was as if he had entered a completely different world with a faint purple light surrounding him. It was as if he had entered heaven. Stepping on this piece of heaven and earth was like walking on clouds. Wei Hai and the other two followed Lin Feng, their hearts beating extremely fast. Very quickly, they arrived at their destination. As expected, Lin Feng stood outside the sky passage, his eyes shining brightly. In front of him, there were still two arc-shaped passages in the sky. One was blue and the other was red. The entrance of the passage was extremely wide and as tall as the heavenly gate. Wei Hai and the other two were shocked by Pang Rant's aura, their mouths wide open and their expressions dull. However, Lin Feng turned a deaf ear to them and looked straight at the red passage in the sky. At this moment, it was completely different from when he had just come out. The red mist had already disappeared. It was as if the entrance of the passage had been blocked. It was very strange. Only the blue mist was left, enveloping the entire world. The originally purple mist was gradually turning blue. Judging from the time, the change should have just happened. And the only reason for the change was Xian Air. What did you say, Brother Lin? Wei Hai's eyes widened. It can't be, right? Lindigo? Qiyu covered her mouth in shock, while Qi Yang was completely shocked. Xian should have entered the red sky passageway. Furthermore, Lin Feng paused for a moment as he stared at the entrance of the passageway. If my guess is correct, Xian most likely has great fortune in this mysterious wood spirit land. When he entered the blue passage in the sky, The blue mist would not disappear, but Xian Air could. Furthermore, Xian Air did not have the heart of wood spirits, but she could activate this land of wood spirits. Why? Because there was a voice that was calling her. Is it really a fortune? Wei Hao was pleasantly surprised. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. To be called by this mysterious land of wood spirits, Xian Air's luck was obviously quite good. It was obvious that this land of wood spirits had a heaven-defying power. Just the two huge trees that he saw were already very impressive. And this was only the edge of the wood spirit land. Who knew how many secrets there would be if one went deeper? In terms of its mysteriousness, one could tell 100 things with a single glance. The origin of this land of wood spirits was definitely extraordinary. It was at least left behind by a saint or even a saint king, or even a legendary starry sky expert. But there were many things that Lin Feng did not say clearly. To Wei Hai and the other two, it was enough to know that Xian Air was fine. As for the rest, he could not guarantee. Everything depended on Xian Air. Brother Lin, you are leaving now? Wei Hai was surprised. Yes, Lin Feng. Why are you only staying for a month? Qiyang was also puzzled. In the eyes of the people in Fengyang Valley, such a precious place for cultivation could not be found anywhere. But Lin Feng did not care at all. I still have things to do. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Since he had promised Qian, Sima, Shi, and Ji Xia, he had to keep his promise. Moreover, the heart of wood spirits was almost used up. There was no point in staying any longer. There was still a long way to go, and he would have plenty of chances. Everyone felt a sense of reluctance. Whether it was Qi Yang, Qi Yu, or Wei Hai, they all treated Lin Feng as a true friend. Once he left, they did not know when they would meet again. They felt a sense of melancholy. All right, all good things must come to an end. Lin Feng smiled and patted Qi Yang and Qi Yu's shoulders. After some time, when everything is done, I'll come back here and focus on cultivating. At that time, we will naturally meet again. Don't go back on your word, Lindigo, Qi Yu said with a smile. Yes. Lin Feng nodded and looked at Wei Hai. Goodbye, Senior Hai. Take care, Brother Lin, Wei Hai said reluctantly. Looking at the sincere expressions of the three, Lin Feng felt a sense of warmth. But since he had chosen this path, he had no regrets. Cultivation was destined to be a difficult path. It was a path he had to walk alone. You gain something, you lose something. After stepping out of the central area, Lin Feng did not leave immediately. There were still many immortal fruits and immortal herbs in this place of spiritual energy. He could not let them go to waste. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had collected 54-star immortal fruits, 25-star immortal fruits, and 3 6-star immortal fruits. It's about time. Lin Feng nodded lightly. He was not a kind person. He had given enough to the people of Rising Wind Valley. At this moment, there were still over 34-star immortal fruits, 3 5-star immortal fruits, and several 2-star and 3-star immortal fruits left in the place of spiritual energy. To the people of Rising Wind Valley, they had already made a huge profit. Phew! Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he looked at the central area again. At this moment, the purple mist had completely turned blue. The color had changed, and the density of spiritual energy had decreased significantly. The next time I come, I will bring enough wood spirit hearts. Lin Feng nodded lightly. He needed a lot of wood spirit hearts. This amount would be quite shocking. In order to purchase this amount of wood spirit hearts, he had to have enough money. I didn't expect. I would also be worried about soul coins. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. The savings that the Liu family had accumulated over the generations was indeed shocking. However, it was far from enough for what he needed. Green Smoke City is too small. It's time for me to go out and explore. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A light flashed in his right hand, and a returned city talisman appeared. Lin Feng crushed it gently. In an instant, accompanied by a light flash, Lin Feng's figure slowly turned into nothingness. He disappeared from this place of spiritual energy. It had been a whole month since the battle between the Feng and Liu families. Green Smoke City was now officially under the control of the Feng family. The power of the Liu family had basically been completely disintegrated in this month. The forces that were originally on the same side, as the Liu family had changed sides, retreated, and those that resisted stubbornly were all swept away by the Fong family. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The Fong family was only slightly damaged in the battle against the Liu family. This became the biggest barrier for the Fong family to rule over Green Smoke City. Otherwise, even if the Liu family was destroyed, the Fong family would not be able to suppress the other forces. But now, the Fong clan was officially in charge of Green Smoke City and no longer had any objections. Fong residence, meeting hall. Fong Tiansheng sat at the head of the table with his chin in his hand, exuding a dignified aura. Below him, the patriarchs, sect masters, and other forces of Green Smoke City were all in heated discussion. At present, the entire Green Smoke City followed the Fong family's lead. As the patriarch of the Fong family, Fong Tiansheng was naturally the pride of the heavens. However, normally, he would not speak at such meetings. He would just sit there and put on a show. In fact, he had already handed over most of the Fong family's affairs to Fong and I. The hall was extremely noisy. Everyone was talking at once. Many people were arguing until their faces were red. They were shirtless and almost started fighting. Fong Tiansheng frowned slightly, feeling a little bored. At this moment, tap, 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 a Fong family cultivator ran in from outside the door. Fong Tiansheng's eyes flashed. The Fong family cultivator got down on one knee and cupped his hands. Patriarch, there's a cultivator named Lin Fong who wants to see you. The noise stopped and was instantly replaced by laughter. Where did this cultivator come from? He actually wants Patriarch Fong to see him? Lin Fong? Who is that? I've never heard of this name. He sure is arrogant. He probably wants to attract attention. He doesn't even know who he is. Laughter rang out as everyone looked at him with contempt and disdain. The Fong clan was currently in charge of the entire Green Smoke City. The patriarch of the Fong family, Fong Tiansheng, was not someone who could be met at will. But, quick, lead the way. Fong Tiansheng was like an awakened tiger. His eyes were dazzling, and he could not wait any longer. 3 steps turned into 2. Fong Tiansheng could not wait to step out of the meeting hall, ignoring the important meeting at hand. The group of Green Smoke City's patriarchs, sect masters were left staring at each other in bewilderment. This Lin Fong, who was he? To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 531. Long time no see, Brother Lin, little brother. Fong Tiansheng walked in, laughing heartily. In Green Smoke City, Lin Feng's name was even more famous than Lin Feng's, and there weren't many who knew of Lin Feng's true identity. But Fong Tiansheng was obviously one of them. Patriarch, you seem to be in high spirits. Lin Feng smiled. Thank you. Fong Tiansheng said heartily, gesturing for him to sit. Lin Feng nodded and sat down. The servant girl put down 2 cups of tea, and Fong Tiansheng waved his hand, indicating for her to leave. One doesn't visit a temple without a reason. To be honest, I came back to Green Smoke City to look for you. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Fong Tiansheng smiled, but he knew that Lin Feng wouldn't have come to drink tea and chat with him. Brother Lin, little brother is a straightforward person. If there's anything my Fong family can help with, just say it. As long as it's within my power, I won't refuse. Lin Feng nodded lightly, then took out a set of 7 wooden carvings that Wei Hai had given him and placed them on the table. Fong Tiansheng's eyes flashed, and he said, "Oh, Patriarch, do you recognize this item?" Lin Feng's eyes shone as he stared straight into Fong Tiansheng's eyes. That was why he had come. If Senior Hai hadn't lied to him, then the Fong family, which had confiscated all of the Liu family's assets, should have 2 sets of wooden carvings. Facing Lin Feng's aggressive gaze, Fong Tiansheng smiled bitterly. A scholar who had been away for 3 days looked at him in a different light. With his current strength, he was like a scholar without the strength to truss up a chicken in front of Lin Feng. Although he hesitated, Fong Tiansheng didn't lie to Lin Feng. He said honestly, "Brother Lin, little brother is indeed well informed. My Fong family does indeed have 2 sets of wooden carvings." As expected, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. "I wonder if the patriarch is willing to part with it?" Lin Feng went straight to the point. This. Fong Tianxing's expression changed slightly as he smiled. The ancestor loves this item very much, but if Brother Lin and Brother Lin want it, I believe the ancestor will not keep it to himself, but... Fong Tianxing's voice trailed off. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly as he nodded. "Rest assured, Patriarch, the price will definitely satisfy you. He could buy 2 sets of wood carvings at once. So what if he spent some doling coins?" "Brother Lin, you've misunderstood." Fong Tianxing shook his head and smiled. "My Fong family has plenty of money. What I want, it's a promise from Brother Lin." Fong Tianxing's eyes lit up. "Promise?" Lin Feng was stunned. Looking at Fong Tianxing, he saw that his face was filled with righteousness. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. "Patriarch, please speak frankly." Seeing that Lin Feng didn't refuse, Fong Tianxing was overjoyed. "Brother Lin, please rest assured. It's not an excessive request. I only hope that if the Fong family encounters a crisis one day, and Brother Lin has the ability to help, I hope you can help the Fong family." Preparing for a rainy day, Fong Tianxing was indeed worthy of being the patriarch of the Fong family. "So my promise is worth so much." Lin Feng smiled. "Patriarch, aren't you afraid that I'll go back on my word?" Fong Tianxing smiled and shook his head. "Brother Lin, I'm not that kind of person." Indeed, Lin Feng was a man of his word. If he promised someone something, he would do it even at the cost of his life. Lin Feng looked at Fong Tianxing. Seeing the old fox's smile, he couldn't help but smile as well. Indeed, this was a win-win deal. "Deal," Lin Feng said lightly. "Good." Fong Tianxing laughed heartily. "Brother Lin, please wait for a moment. I'll go get it." "Sorry to trouble you, Patriarch." Lin Feng nodded. Soon, Fong Tianxing returned. He brought 2 sets of 14 wooden carvings with him. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled and his heart raced. The 2 sets of wooden carvings were placed on the left and right sides, each displaying a unique movement. As for the concept, they matched each other. The 7 concepts were exactly the same as the 7 concepts in his set of wooden carvings. There were 3 sets of wooden carvings in total. They had the same concept, but they had 3 different movements. It was quite unique. No wonder. Lin Feng's eyes widened. At this moment, all the questions in his heart were answered. The second concept, he comprehended the storm spear art, while Ding Hong comprehended the second spear of the Sun Dragon spear art. The concepts were the same, but the moves were different. Therefore, what they comprehended and created was also very different. It was like using the same stone to build a different house. "I won't stand on ceremony then, Patriarch." Lin Feng smiled indifferently. With a gentle sweep of his right hand, the 14 wooden carvings on the table instantly entered the purple ring. After returning, he would have plenty of time to comprehend them. He was not in a hurry now. Fong Tianxing smiled. "Is there anything else that Brother Lin needs my help with?" Fong Tianxing naturally wouldn't be stingy if he could befriend and curry favor with an expert with a boundless future, especially since Lin Feng gave him such a promise. There were only benefits for both of them. Fong Tianxing had to be careful when cooperating with other forces. However, cooperating with a lone wolf like Lin Feng, what was there to be afraid of? What they pursued was completely different. It was the same for Lin Feng. How could he not understand what Fong Tianxing was thinking? Strength was the capital of everything. In the Douling world, experts would always stand at the peak and be respected by others. I wonder if Patriarch has any information about the other wooden carvings? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He did not know how many sets of wooden carvings there were in total, but it was obvious that these wooden carvings should have been a complete set and not scattered. If possible, he wanted to collect them all. He wanted to see what was so special about them. "This, I have never checked." Fong Tianxing frowned slightly and suddenly said, "As far as I know, Fengyang Valley has a set, Healing Gang has a set, and Lu family has a set. I don't know about the rest. Healing Gang? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Yes. Feng Tianxing smiled. 5 years ago, Healing Gang took out this set of wooden carvings to auction, but the price was too high and it was not sold. Oh, Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. He was not afraid of the high price, but he was afraid that they would not be willing to sell. That day, Healing Gang offered 10,000 Do Ling coins, and the price has been lowered over the years, but they still have not sold. Feng Tianxing looked at Lin Feng's bright eyes and knew what he was thinking. Brother Lin, if you are interested, let me help you. I should be able to get it for 2,000 to 3,000 Do Ling coins. Okay, then I will trouble Patriarch. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, Lin Feng took out 3,000 Do Ling coins and placed them on the table. They glowed faintly. That was that. He could not let Feng family pay for this set of wooden carvings. Feng Tianxing nodded with a smile and did not refuse. I will trouble Patriarch to help me investigate the other wooden carvings. Also, I will have to trouble Patriarch to help me collect a large amount of wood spirit hearts. I still have matters to attend to, so I will visit again in a month. Lin Feng's eyes shone with a serious expression. Feng family was now the ruler of Green Smoke City. If he did not make use of them, how could he face himself? Moreover, these things were just small matters to Feng family. Feng Tianxing replied with a no. Although he did not know why Lin Feng wanted the wood spirit hearts, there were some things that he should not know. Feng Tianxing nodded slowly. Brother Lin, what grade do you want? How many wood spirit hearts do you want? Lin Feng took out a thin, shiny crystal card and placed it on the table. Brother Lin, you... Feng Tianxing's eyes widened. How could he not recognize the gold card of the Qin Family Chamber of Commerce? These 100,000 Do Ling coins will be the down payment. Lin Feng said slowly. I want as many wood spirit hearts of Star Ocean grade and above. 100,000 Do Ling coins? Feng Tianxing's mouth twitched as he smiled bitterly. Okay, I will try my best, Brother Lin. Feng Tianxing nodded. Then I will trouble Patriarch. See you in a month. Lin Feng smiled. Then he turned and left. Lin Feng did not stay in Green Smoke City. He left the Feng mansion and flew straight out of the city. I will go to the colored jade sect again, and everything in Green Smoke City will be finished. Lin Feng nodded. Now that he had finished half of his business, there was no need to meet up with Qian. It would only make the little girl feel more separated. Anyway, it would not take much time to go to the colored jade sect. Whoosh! Sitting cross-legged on the urgent fire shuttle, Lin Feng focused on cultivating. His secret doppelganger maintained the new deceleration space and controlled the urgent fire shuttle calmly. His main body was in the deceleration space, absorbing star stones at double the efficiency. His cultivation speed was quite fast. He had gained a lot from this trip to the chaotic swamp. Just the advancement of this deceleration space was already extremely rare and precious. His cultivation speed had increased by several times. Absorbing the energy of the giant tree had also solved his urgent problem. The market in Green Smoke City is not big. Even if all the star sea level wood spirit hearts were added together, there would only be a little. Lin Feng nodded. He was very clear. After all, there were too few experts in Green Smoke City. It was not bad to be able to get 1 or 2 star sea level wood spirit hearts. Not all warriors could kill the wood spirit hearts. After all, they were existences comparable to the sorcerer race. But after so many years, there should be a lot of them. Lin Feng thought. There were very few places in Green Smoke City that could use the heart of wood spirit. Moreover, a star sea great heart of wood spirit was considerably expensive. Just the first rank would cost 100 soul coins. How could an ordinary martial artist afford it? But to him, 1 or 2 star sea level wood spirit hearts did not matter. As long as there was energy, it was fine. The most important thing was quantity. With the influence of the Feng family, not only will it save me a lot of effort, it will also save me a lot of money. Lin Feng smiled faintly. It would be a waste not to use free labor. The quick-fire shuttle sped along like a meteor streaking across the sky. Although the colored jade sect was not close to Green Smoke City, but with Lin Feng's speed, he could reach it in a few hours. Lin Feng landed on the top of the mountain. It was the highest mountain in this mountain range. Is it here? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He glanced at the map. The top clearly indicated the location of the colored jade sect. Lin Feng's brows relaxed. He smiled and said, "It should be here, but it's really far." Compared to the other factions, the colored jade sect was in a remote area outside Green Smoke City. Pei Hong, Pei Qing, Little Jade, Lei Dao. Lin Feng's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. How is everyone? After being together for so many days, they had accumulated deep feelings for each other. Although he came for the wooden carving, he also came to visit these friends and bid them farewell. Where is the colored jade sect? Lin Feng looked around. Suddenly, Lin Feng's expression changed. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 532. An extremely powerful energy. This is... Lin Feng suddenly looked at the distant mountain peak. The energy of the aura came from there. It was rather powerful. That was a human martial artist. Such a powerful aura. It's at least above star C state level 9. Lin Feng's chest rose and fell slightly with a shocked expression. He had never imagined that he would meet such an expert in such a desolate place. His intuition told him that this mysterious expert was stronger than the #1 expert of Green Smoke City, Lu Bu, and even stronger than the Go-Mang shaman race that he defeated in the chaotic swamp. What pa? The aura was instantly cut off. It was as if a connecting thread had suddenly been broken into two. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Just as he was puzzled, two familiar figures suddenly came from not far away. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Pei Hong and Pei Qing widened their beautiful eyes and looked at each other. Long time no see, senior sister. Lin Feng smiled. It's really junior brother. No, it's Lin Feng. Lindigo, why are you here? Pei Hong and Pei Qing came back to their senses and were overjoyed. I'm here to visit you. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Didn't I promise you before I left? It's true. Pei Hong and Pei Qing said excitedly. They thought that Lin Feng was just being polite back then, but they didn't expect that. Lin Feng really came to visit them now. Thinking of Lin Feng's strength and how he could still treat them as friends, Pei Hong and Pei Qing felt sweet in their hearts. I'm already here. How can it be fake? Lin Feng blinked. Senior sisters, aren't you going to show me around the Sayu sect? Let's go. Pei Hong pulled Lin Feng's hand and smiled as impatient as usual. If the sect master knows that you're here, she will definitely be very happy. Pei Qingqing smiled and followed behind the two of them. This place is really good. Lin Feng praised as he walked. Looking around, there were green mountains, green grass, and gurgling streams. Although the density of spiritual energy here was ordinary, the valley was quiet and secluded, making it a good place to cultivate calmly. However, the wind at the summit was extremely strong. Sometimes it was firm and fierce, sometimes it was weak, and sometimes it was condensed. It was as if storm whip technique. Lin Feng's eyes deepened as he suddenly understood. Obviously, Pei Qing's tempest whip technique was created here, and it was also adapted to local conditions. It's right in front, Lin Feng. Pei Hong smiled. Lin Feng nodded and smiled in his heart. This place was far and remote, and the land of the sect was even more difficult to find. This mountain peak towered into the clouds, and ordinary martial artists would find it difficult to climb. No wonder the Colored Jade sect could not accept any disciples, although it was related to fame, but there must be many reasons. Lindigo. You don't know, but in the past few months, the number of martial artists who have set foot on this mountain peak is more than the number of people I have seen since I was born. Pei Qing smiled and pointed to the front. Look, the Color Jade sect was originally cold and cheerless, but in the past few months, it has entered the category of a small sect. A small sect referred to the number of disciples in the sect that reached 3 digits. For example, the number of inner disciples in the Fengyang Valley that reached 4 digits was considered a medium-sized sect, and those that reached 5 digits were called large sections. Of course, this was only the division of Green Smoke City. Yes, Lin Feng smiled. Looking ahead, there were already many figures in the square, sweating profusely as they practiced. There were at least hundreds of people, much better than the previous single digits. The happiest one is little Lu, the little girl. She was originally the youngest, but now she has become the senior sister. Pei Hong said in a carefree manner. Lin Feng also smiled a little. Little Lu's complacent look appeared in his mind, and he immediately felt warmth in his heart. Everyone seemed to be doing well, so he was at ease. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched. To be honest, he had always felt guilty towards the people of the Color Jade sect. Because of him, the girls were attacked and almost lost their lives in Green Smoke City. All along, he had wanted to make up for it. They are all here because of Lin Deji's name. Pei Qing chuckled. Junior brothers and sisters really want to see Lin Dege. I wonder if they can fulfill their wish this time? Of course. Lin Feng smiled. He would help if he could. To him, this was just a small matter. Soon, Lin Feng arrived at the Color Jade sect. Located at the peak of the mountain, the Color Jade sect was much smaller than the Fengyang Valley in terms of size. However, the scenery here was quite good, as if one was looking down at the world from a high place, making one feel comfortable. Look, it's Senior Brother Lin 1. It's really Senior Brother Lin, the top 32 of the elite martial arts competition. Rumor has it that Senior Brother Lin defeated Jixia and is the real champion of the elite martial arts competition. With Lin Feng's arrival, the Color Jade sect's martial arts training field was in an uproar. Everyone was whispering nonstop. They looked at Lin Feng with eyes full of respect and admiration. All of them were inspired by Lin Feng's strength and chose to join the Color Jade sect. Now that they saw the real person, it was as if they had seen their idol. They felt incomparably close. Lin Dege, a cheerful voice sounded. Lin Feng didn't need to turn his head to know who it was. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, revealing a smile. That voice was filled with excitement and joy. It was obviously little Jade. Lin Dege, little Jade missed you so much. Little Jade's small body flew into Lin Feng's arms. She couldn't be any more excited. I missed you too. Lin Feng smiled and stroked little Jade's head. Little Jade was like his sister. That day in Green Smoke City, she was the one who stuck to him the most. Because of this, their relationship was the best. By the way, Lin Dege, why are you here? Little Jade's big eyes fluttered as she asked happily. I'm here to see you. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Really? Little Jade was pleasantly surprised and said, Lin Dege, little Jade will show you around the Color Jade sect. Lin Feng nodded and glanced at the hundreds of pairs of eyes that were looking at him with reverence. Wait a moment, little Jade. As he spoke, Lin Feng took a few steps forward and came to the martial arts training field. He smiled slightly and said, Hello, everyone. It's the first time we meet. I'm Lin 1. Immediately, there was a burst of cheers from below. Senior Brother Lin. Hello, Senior Brother Lin. The disciples' voices were extremely loud. Lin Feng said casually, It's the first time we meet, so I didn't bring any greeting gifts. These Do Spirit coins are just a small token of my appreciation. As he spoke, Lin Feng's hand flickered with light. He took out 200 Do Spirit coins and handed them to Pei Hong. Please distribute them for me, senior sister. Instantly, there was a burst of joyous noise from the crowd. Voices of gratitude sprung up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Each person could get 1 Do Spirit coin. To these ordinary martial artists, this was a rather large sum. When they came to participate in the elite martial arts competition that day, all the traveling expenses of Pei Hong and Pei Qing were less than 1 Do Spirit coin. Everyone has a share. Everyone work hard to cultivate. Lin Feng nodded with a smile and said in a few words. For him, 200 Do spirit coins was just a small amount. Even if he added a zero, it was just a small amount. However, too many greeting gifts might not be a good thing. 1 Do spirit coin was enough. After distributing the greeting gifts, Lin Feng toured the entire Colored Jade sect with Pei Hong and the other two leading the way. The Colored Jade sect was not big. In less than 15 minutes, they had walked around the entire sect. One word could describe it: ordinary. Indeed, it was ordinary everywhere. No matter how one looked at it, it was just an ordinary small sect. But I wonder who that powerhouse is? If I'm not wrong, he should have deliberately revealed his aura. Lin Feng nodded, his eyes shining. He did not get to the bottom of it. If this powerhouse wanted to see him, then there would naturally be a follow-up. The wind here is really strong, Lin Feng said with a smile. After walking around the sect, the only thing that made him feel strange was the storm at the top of the mountain. Of course, this is the symbol of our Colored Jade sect. Pei Hong winked mysteriously. Lin Feng let out a soft, deep-in thought. Let's go, Lindigo. Sect Master has been waiting for you for a long time. Pei Qing pointed to the front and said with a smile. Okay, Lin Feng replied. Greetings, Sect Master. Lin Feng bowed slightly. At this moment, Pei Hong and the other girls had already closed the door and retreated. You are Lin Feng. The voice was gentle and elegant. It was a man with a smile on his face. Lin Feng looked at him and saw that he was dressed in a white robe like a scholar. He looked very elegant and did not look like a warrior at all. But the person in front of him was the real sect master of Colored Jade sect, Pei Ru. That's right. Lin Feng nodded and sat down. The elegant man in front of him was quite ordinary. He had just broken through to the Star Sea level. Are you disappointed? Pei Ru smiled. Of course not. Lin Feng shook his head slowly and smiled. To him, it did not matter whether Pei Ru was strong or not. After all, he was just a passerby of Colored Jade sect. Pei Ru smiled and poured a cup of tea for Lin Feng. Try it, Brother Lin. This is a specialty of our Colored Jade sect. Okay. Lin Feng gently pursed his lips and his eyes flashed. The fragrance entered his mouth with a slight astringent feeling. However, it instantly spread throughout his mouth and hit every corner of his body. It was like a storm. It had a different taste. How unique, Lin Feng praised. He only knew a little about tea. However, even though he had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. The uniqueness of this tea was completely different from what he had tasted before. Just like the Colored Jade sect that stood on the peak of the mountain, it was different from the rest. It's a special product of Mount Lulan called iron bone tea. It's fermented from the buds collected during the first winter. After it's finished, it's not needed. After it's dried, it's processed. As for the water used to brew the tea, Pei Ru spoke slowly with a dazzling light in his eyes, causing Lin Feng to be stunned. There were too many technical terms that he did not understand. However, there was one thing that he was sure of. The sect master of Colored Jade sect was quite proficient in the way of tea. Sorry, I was rude. Pei Ru smiled. Actually, I'm very knowledgeable about music, chess, calligraphy, painting, tea, wine, and flowers. If Brother Lin is interested, we can exchange ideas. After saying that, he laughed to himself. Pei Ru nodded and said, I have not thanked you yet. My disciple has caused trouble for Brother Lin this time. Sect Master, you are too kind. Lin Feng shook his head. I should be the one who caused trouble for them. Pei Ru smiled faintly. The relationship between people is intricate and complicated. After saying that, Pei Ru stood up slightly. Lin Feng was stunned. Let's go. Brother Lin, I will bring you to meet someone. Pei Ru smiled mysteriously. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 533. Flying in the Air. Lin Feng followed closely behind Pei Ru. His eyes flashed. The feeling of flying on the ground was completely different from flying on such a high mountain. Also, the wind here was extremely strong. It affected speed, but Peru seemed to be unfazed. He was not affected at all. The speed of a level 1-star sea state was fully utilized as though the air pressure and storm did not exist. Indeed, extraordinary, Lin Feng thought. To be able to maintain his normal state in such an environment, one needed to have a rather high level of control over one's body. Peru was clearly better than him in terms of control over movement techniques. However, with Lin Feng's strength, it was not difficult to keep up. Peru was a level 5-star sea state, but had a level 7-star sea state power. If Peru was considered running, then Lin Feng only needed to walk to catch up. Technique was important, but when one's strength reached a certain level, technique was not so important. Meet someone. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. In his mind, the scene when he had just stepped into this place appeared in an instant. The chi of the powerful being was still present. It was still fresh in his mind. The wind was getting stronger. The storm here was even stronger than the one in the colored jade sect. Lin Feng's eyes brightened as he fell in a deep thought. Soon, Peru landed and arrived at his destination. A faint light flickered in Lin Feng's eyes. This place was not very far from the Sci-Fi sect, but the strength of the storm that was blowing towards them was several times stronger. If a martial artist was not strong enough, they would feel a great pressure just by standing here. Go in. Grandma is waiting for you. Peru smiled. Grandma? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. This was a barren land. It seemed that because the storm was too strong, even the trees and flowers could not survive. Only some weeds fluttered in the wind, showing strong resilience and vitality. He looked into the distance. There was a patch of greenery, and he could vaguely see a figure. Lin Feng took a step forward and didn't ask anything. Although he did not know who the grandma Peru mentioned was, but soon he would know. Ta! Step by step, Lin Feng's eyes blazed. Although he believed that Peru would not harm him, he still remained cautious. His intuition told him that this grandma was not simple. One step, until chi. An astonishing sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Lin Feng's eyes rapidly changed. Light and shadow flashed in front of him. A cold light brought with it a fierce wind, instantly attacking. This is... Lin Feng quickly retreated. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air was filled with a strong fighting spirit. The violent wind pressure seemed to have solidified the surrounding air, and the wind roared in their ears. It's the storm whip technique, Lin Feng thought to himself. His movements were not slow at all. The nightmare demon's spear was unsheathed, and the fiery red spear body flashed with a ray of light. Lin Feng bellowed as the black mist condensed, thrusting his nightmare spear forward. The weapons were different, but the concepts were exactly the same. Stormy spear art. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The word entanglement. Whip technique and spear technique merged together, forming a unique rhythm. This is... Lin Feng felt the violent wind pressure in front of him. With the eye of the storm as the center, it formed a small hurricane. When the red whip and the nightmare demon spear came into contact, it instantly gained the upper hand. Like a poisonous snake entangling its prey, its soft power completely exploded. Damn! Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. He did not expect that he would be at a disadvantage the moment he made his move. When the same move was used by the mysterious opponent, it was even more powerful than his own. Bang! They came into contact. Lin Feng instantly felt a burst of pressure in his chest and was immediately repelled. But he did not feel any pain. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes suddenly brightened. The cold light in front of him had already disappeared. What entered his eyes was an old woman whose height only reached his chest. Her shriveled face was wrinkled with thick wrinkles. She was already very old. In front of her, the fiery red whip spiraled up, as if it had a life of its own. Again, Lin Feng's eyes deepened. In an instant, he sped forward. Although the battle just now was shallow, he had benefited greatly. The same move, the same explosion of power. Yet, he was inferior to him. What did this mean? Spear technique and whip technique are the same. There is no difference in the concept. The reason why I lost is because Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He fought again, and once again felt the violent wind that assailed his nose. The hurricane formed by the eye of the storm in the center of the whip perfectly presented the storm whip technique that Pei Hong had used before. That day, Pei Hong had only formed a small eye of the storm, but the granny in front of him had released a violent wind pressure. It was a completely different power. So this is the real storm spear art. Lin Feng's eyes shone. As if he understood something, a window opened in his heart. Lin Feng's jumping speed suddenly increased. The nightmare demon spear was brandished again and again like a meteor, constantly coming into contact with the fiery red whip. Although he was no match for it every time, it made his heart tremble. A figure seemed to be moving in his mind, and his comprehension was getting deeper and deeper. Deep comprehension. Lin Feng had completely entered his own world. The battle had long stopped because Lin Feng no longer needed it. The Real Storm Whip technique had been completely comprehended. The violent wind pressure was like a spear with a spearhead, and its power was endless. The Nightmare Demon Spear was sometimes fast and sometimes agile. Lin Feng continued to comprehend. This was an extremely rare opportunity, but it was easier said than done. It was one thing to understand it, but it was another to do it. Lin Feng frowned. The Nightmare Demon Spear in his hand changed unpredictably, but the Storm Spear art had already been formed. It was easier said than done to change the existing pattern. What is it? How can I display the true power of the Storm Spear art? This wind pressure, where did it come from? Lin Feng sank into deep thought, as if he had stepped into a maze. Comprehension. Lin Feng was quite strong. To be able to change the whip technique into a spear technique was already an inconceivable thing. Again and again, over and over again, Lin Feng continued to display the storm spear art. His willpower was quite firm. Since he had started, he would not stop. I'm missing something. What is it? Lin Feng clenched his teeth. He felt that he was just a step away from that crucial point, but it was as if he was separated by a piece of paper. He could see it, but he could not touch it. Suddenly, Zheng, a clear sound of a zither rang out. It was as if his consciousness had been awakened in the silence of the empty valley. This is... Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up, flickering with a faint luster. In a split second, a light and pleasant movement appeared along with the notes. It was sometimes hurried and sometimes slow, like a gurgling stream. Lin Feng stopped his movements and closed his eyes, feeling this movement. His heart was as calm as dust, as if he had vaguely felt something. Suddenly, the zither music became hurried, and the weather changed. Zheng, Zheng, Zheng. It was like soldiers attacking, sonorous and deafening. Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes wide, shining with a sharp light. Bang! The nightmare spear rose again. Holding it in his hand, it seemed to have a soul. The spear rotated, forming a whirlpool. The air seemed to condense from the center, producing buzzing and crying sounds. Lin Feng was greatly shocked. Yes, this is the feeling. A strange feeling that he had never felt before welled up in his heart. As the zither music suddenly became louder, Lin Feng's eyes became sharper. Zheng, the nightmare spear, seemed to have a life of its own. The body of the spear was like a dragon coming out of the sea, rushing into the sky. A strong buzzing sound rang out. It formed a small eye of the storm, but it expanded in an instant, filled with extreme pressure. The wind suddenly condensed, flying sand and stones. The aura was incomparably terrifying. The same move, used with a long whip and a long spear, was basically, it was two different concepts. Boom! Lin Feng's spear rumbled and vibrated. His figure was filled with excitement, and the nightmare spear danced crazily. Finally, he found his feeling. How can a whip and a spear be the same? Although the two have similarities, to trigger a storm is completely different. A long whip is flexible, which in itself represents softness. But a long spear is full of strength, full of pressure. To condense the eye of the storm and exert the wind pressure. A long spear is more difficult than a whip, but the power is better. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and he felt a strong sense of excitement. The upgrade of the storm spear art was like opening a window, and in an instant he understood a lot. The key was in the rhythm, It's that Guqin music. Lin Feng was shocked, and his blurred eyes instantly lit up. Putting away the nightmare demon spear, Lin Feng hastily looked back. Not far away, Pei Ru was looking at him with a smile, sitting on the ground. In front of him was a Guqin, emitting a strong charm. Obviously, the Guqin music came from Pei Ru. "Thank you, senior." Lin Feng bowed slightly. The Pei Ru in front of him was far more powerful than he had imagined. Although he was only a level 1-star C state, his mastery of the Guqin was extremely profound. Pei Ru didn't say anything, and only nodded with a faint smile. He gave a look, and Lin Feng instantly understood. Turning around, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Not far away, with her hands behind her back, the slightly hunchbacked old woman had a satisfied smile and nodded to him. "Little guy. Not bad. Thank you, senior, for your guidance." Lin Feng cupped his hands. "Don't call me senior, it's unpleasant." The old woman frowned. "Call me grandma." Lin Feng was startled, and then smiled. "Yes, grandma." The old woman said with satisfaction. "As my disciple said, this little guy's comprehension is not bad." "Huh!" The fiery red whip in her hand rose again, and the old woman's eyes emitted a faint light. Her slightly hunchbacked back seemed straightened. "Come, try the third move." Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Grandma was obviously talking about the third move of the wooden carving. It was the same concept as the 9-dragon spear art he created. "Grandma, please guide me." Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright, and his battle intent was boiling. He didn't expect to meet such an expert in the Sci-Fei sect. It was just as Senior Hai said. In the Douling world, there were many hidden experts. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 534. Cough, cough. The old woman coughed softly, blood seeping out of the corner of her mouth. "Are you all right, Grandma?" Pei Ru hurried forward to support her. The old woman's face was slightly pale. She waved her hand, indicating that Pei Ru didn't need to worry. "It's an old illness." Then, she turned around to look at Lin Feng, who was focused on comprehending. A wisp of light shot out of the old woman's dark eyes. "What do you think of this little guy? His comprehension is amazing." Pei Ru's eyes brightened as he spoke. "How is his strength?" The old woman's voice was a little weak. "Very strong." Pei Ru's expression was serious. The old woman nodded and then said in a low voice, "That compared to me, who is stronger?" Pei Ru's expression changed slightly. He turned to look at the old woman's dim eyes and sighed softly. "To be honest, Grandma, I'm afraid you're not his match." Pei Ru turned around and looked at Lin Feng again with bright eyes. At that time, according to Ah Hong and Ah Qing's description, I thought he was just an ordinary talented martial practitioner. But this time, too unexpected. Pei Ru's expression was serious as he exclaimed repeatedly. No wonder Pei Ru was so surprised. When the people of Colored Jade sect left, Lin Feng hadn't entered the Green Smoke's secret domain. The days in the Green Smoke's secret domain were the time when Lin Feng's strength broke through the fastest. I didn't expect it either. The old woman's shriveled face moved slightly, and a hint of satisfaction appeared in her eyes. Maybe this little guy's strength is comparable to the strongest person in Green Smoke City. The old bastard of the Liu family, Lu Bu. He shouldn't be that strong, right? Pei Ru's eyes were deep. When he fully understands this move, he will be... The old woman looked at Lin Feng and nodded seriously. Pei Ru looked at Lin Feng and seemed to understand something. "Grandma, you want to yes," the old woman said in a low voice. "But I don't know if you will agree." "Probably." Pei Ru smiled faintly. If it was the Lin Feng described by Pei Qing and Pei Hong, Pei Ru was confident that he would definitely help. Whether it was Pei Ru or Grandma, They all had a high opinion of Lin Feng. However, they did not know just how strong Lin Feng was right now. It was because Lin Feng had not used his full strength during the fight just now. In fact, he hadn't even used half of his strength. Lu Bu. If the two of them knew that the so-called number one expert of Greensmoke City had already died at the hands of Lin Feng, who knew what kind of expression they would have? And compared to the Lin Feng of that time and the current Lin Feng, there was a large gap between them. This was especially true when it came to the comprehension of new spear arts and the advancement of the deceleration space. If Lin Feng were to fight Lu Bu again, he would not need the magnetic explosion power. In a head-on clash, the divine god of war could easily kill him. Oh, the nightmare spear vibrated. Lin Feng's eyes deepened. He comprehended the essence of the 9 Flood Dragon spear art and constantly practiced. It's not difficult to learn the whip technique that Granny displayed just now, but it's not easy to fuse it with my 9 Flood Dragon spear art. The Storm Spear art is comprehended from the second whip of the Storm Whip art. Therefore, it's easy to fuse with it. But Lin Feng frowned. It was extremely troublesome. The third move of the Storm Whip art that Granny displayed was similar to his 9 Flood Dragon Spear art, but the feeling of using it was different. My 9 Flood Dragon Spear art changed from coil to gather, gathering a group attack to attack a single person. But the third move of the Storm Whip art, although it was also gather, it deepened the second whip and displayed the coil word to the limit. One was a transformation, and the other was an advancement. The two were naturally different. It was like looking at the same scenery, but everyone had different thoughts. It was quite troublesome. In terms of spear power, my 9 Flood Dragon Spear art comprehension is deeper and its power is stronger. But Granny's whip was like a storm. It displayed the power of the storm to the limit and perfectly combined with the spear art. Not only did it not lose to my 9 Flood Dragon Spear art, it even faintly surpassed it. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He had a deep understanding. Storm Wind. That whip was completely the advancement of the second whip of the Storm Whip art. It was the same for the whip art and the attack power of the storm. If his spear art could perfectly fuse with Granny's storm, the power of the 9 Flood Dragon Spear art would break through to an extremely powerful realm. Most importantly, he could perfectly display the power of this move to the limit. And this would be the key to his comprehension of the fourth move. Rhythm. Maybe I should do it step by step. First, I should transform this third move into the third spear. Grasp the rhythm of this storm, and then merge again. Yes, just like that. Lin Feng tightened his grip on the Nightmare Demon Spear. Instantly, his eyes lit up. There were many more steps, and it was much more complicated than before. It was like a path that was originally straight, but now there were many twists and turns. But perhaps this was the shortest path. Lin Feng once again entered a state of comprehension. Under the guidance of Pei Ru's Qinin, it took him less than 3 days to completely grasp the third move of the Storm Whip art and transform it into a spear art. Although it seemed to take several times more effort than the second whip, the two were completely different. The transformation of the third move required him to start from the beginning. Most importantly, it was far more difficult than the second whip. So, the rhythm of the third move is like this. But this rhythm is intertwined with the whip art. How do I integrate it into my 9 Flood Dragon Spear art? What should I do? Lin Feng held the Nightmare Demon Spear and waved it nonstop. Perhaps this was a difficult problem, but Lin Feng believed that it was not a dead end. He just hadn't found the method yet. He needed time. This time, Pei Ru couldn't help him. Lin Feng could only rely on himself. For Lin Feng, this was just returning to his normal state. He had long been used to cultivating and comprehending by himself. Since young, his father had made him independent and responsible. This made Lin Feng understand that if he wanted something, he had to rely on himself to fight for it. Time passed day by day. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. Grandmother and Pei Ru weren't in a hurry either. For martial artists, it was normal for them to cultivate in seclusion for 10 or 20 years. In order to create the third move of the Storm Whip art, Grandmother went into seclusion for a total of 33 years before she comprehended the concept and had some small success. But this time, for Lin Feng, it was also a great test. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Immersed in the creation and comprehension of the spear art, Lin Feng didn't feel the passage of time at all. As he continued to immerse himself in it, he thought, and practiced again. He tried again and again, failed again and again. In conclusion, Lin Feng seemed to be searching for the right path. He kept moving forward. Finally, he found the right path. So it's like this. I understand now. Fuse with it and find a point of compatibility. It can't be a one-sided fusion. Both sides have to work together and find a key point. Then, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly brightened, shining brightly. The nightmare demon spear in his hand formed a ray of light and stabbed out crazily. Boom! 9 flood dragons soared into the sky, bringing with them a violent storm. The shocking fluctuation instantly woke Grandmother and Pei Ru up from their cultivation. They opened their eyes wide. It suddenly exploded. Like 9 dragons surrounding the moon, it instantly condensed. Even the shocking storm condensed and gathered in the spear energy, forming a shocking power. Bang! A shocking explosion. The milky white energy around his body gradually disappeared. Lin Feng's eyes burned as he stared into the distance. He held the nightmare demon spear in his right hand. His aura was overflowing, like a god descending to the mortal world. The terrifying power destroyed the only treehouse on the mountain. It was abnormally powerful. Such power. Grandmother's body trembled slightly. She felt a little surprised. Powerful, too powerful. Pei Ru looked at Lin Feng as if he was looking at a monster. He couldn't help but praise. Bang! The nightmare demon spear was retracted. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He looked at his hands and clenched them tightly. This feeling is not bad. The power has increased. It's at least doubled. Lin Feng let out a light breath. His face revealed a happy smile. The only thing he could use right now was his war god strength. Spear techniques were extremely important to him, especially this 9-dragon spear art. It could be used to attack groups and fight one-on-one. It could definitely be called a trump card. Shocking wind intent. I didn't think that spear techniques could change like this. That's right. If it can fuse with fire, why can't it fuse with wind? Lin Feng smiled in a carefree manner and then turned around. Looking at the dazed grandmother and Pei Ru, Lin Feng said apologetically, "I'm sorry, grandmother. I was too engrossed in practicing the spear and destroyed your treehouse." Lin Feng was grateful to the old woman in front of him. She taught him how to use the power of the spear. Maybe it was only 1 or 2 moves, but it opened a door for him to understand. So, spear techniques weren't just limited to this. It's okay. Grandmother's voice was a bit hoarse. Her deep eyes looked straight at Lin Feng, sparkling. Great spear technique, Brother Lin. Pei Ru patted Lin Feng's right arm. His smile was full of praise and admiration. Senior, you flatter me. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Looking at the 2 people in front of him and feeling the different atmosphere, Lin Feng smiled and said, "You get what you pay for. When I receive a favor, I have to return the favor. Seniors, may I know what I can do to repay the tuition fee this time? As long as it's within my power, I will do my best." Lin Feng knew that grandmother and Pei Ru were not related to him. They weren't master and disciple. To teach him like this, obviously, there was another purpose. Brother Lin is indeed straightforward. Pei Ru smiled and said, "I'm being unreasonable." Pei Ru looked at grandmother and nodded. "Grandmother, you'll say it." "Okay, cough, cough." Grandmother's eyes lit up. She coughed lightly and nodded. Looking at the pale grandmother and the blood that was faintly seeping out of her hand, Lin Feng's eyes burned. He seemed to have understood something. "Little guy, I'm about to die. I hope that on account of the kindness of teaching you the technique just now." Grandmother raised her head and looked at Lin Feng. "Do me a favor." Chapter 535. Wind Valley. Lin Feng's eyes focused. "Yes, It's 100,000 miles away from here. Granny's eyes flashed. Looking in the direction Granny was pointing, Lin Feng's brows furrowed slightly. That was the place where the strong wind came from. When the wind was strong, even a galaxy-level warrior would find it hard to bear. He could imagine how strong the wind would be if he got close to the wind valley. The power of nature was extremely terrifying. Granny's expression showed some nostalgia. 1,000 years ago, the Tsayu sect was considered one of the top sects in the Green Smoke City. There were tens of thousands of disciples in the sect. Although the wind here was howling and the environment was harsh, it was still an excellent training ground for warriors. Most importantly, the strong wind would bring dense spirit energy, which would increase the cultivation speed of the disciples. But who would have thought that one day, the spirit energy would become thinner day by day? In the end, only the strong wind was left, and there was no more spirit energy. Lin Feng listened attentively, his eyes shining. He nodded from time to time, but felt pity for the Tsayu sect. Flowers did not bloom for 100 days. The rise and fall of the Tsayu sect proved this sentence. As the spirit energy disappeared, the Tsayu sect gradually declined. Everyone kicks a man who is down. Over the years, the Tsayu sect had accumulated a lot of hatred. Under the accumulation of various factors, in a short 100 years, the Tsayu sect was defeated. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. And then, as a result, he ended up in this half-dead state. What a pity. Lin Feng sighed softly. It was indeed a pity, but just like the Wind Valley, it was fated. It was the will of the heavens. I'm not satisfied. Granny clenched her teeth. In the past 1,000 years, as my strength increased, I have always wanted to go to the Wind Valley to find out what happened. But Granny's eyes showed a hint of loneliness. As I grew older, my strength fell short of my desire. As she spoke, Granny coughed a few more times, and blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. Are you all right, Granny? Lin Feng's gaze changed. Humans would eventually age. Even StarCraft-class warrior could only live for 1,000 years. Pei Ru gently patted grandmother's back and raised his head to look at Lin Feng. He sighed softly. The last time we attacked the Wind Valley, grandmother had used all her strength, but she was still a little short and ended up failing. Granny is too old. In addition to the fact that she has been continuously attacking the Wind Valley for hundreds of years, not only have her old injuries not healed, they have also worsened bit by bit. I'm afraid that she only has less than 10 years left to live. Lin Feng sighed softly. It was because he wasn't strong enough when he was young. When he grew older and had the strength, his body would not be able to take it. So, grandmother, you wish for me to enter Wind Valley and help you investigate the reason behind the disappearance of the spiritual energy? Lin Feng slowly spoke. Grandmother opened her eyes tiredly and nodded weakly. For the past few hundred years, this has become my inner demon. If I don't know the reason until the day I die, I won't be able to rest in peace. Grandmother gritted her teeth and looked extremely sorrowful. The Tsayu sect was like her child. She watched it weaken day by day until it reached its current state. How could she not be sad? Pei Ru saw that Lin Feng was frowning slightly, and his expression instantly became serious. He bent down and cupped his hands together. I hope that Brother Lin can fulfill grandmother's wish and give her an answer. Let her close her eyes in peace, resolve her worries, and leave peacefully. Lin Feng furrowed his brows, but he also felt hesitant. There must be a reason for the sudden disappearance of the spiritual energy in Wind Valley. There must be danger. There might even be an extreme danger. Logic told him that it was not worth it to take such a risk, but, sect leader, there's no need to be so courteous. Lin Feng heaved a long sigh. A wave of energy rose from his right hand and lifted Pei Ru up. Looking at grandmother's face, which looked like it was about to turn into wood, Lin Feng really couldn't say a single word of rejection. I will do my best. Pei Ru and grandmother were pleasantly surprised. Pei Ru instantly revealed a smile and looked towards grandmother. The latter's shriveled face scrunched together, and she nodded her head in relief. Lin Feng smiled and sighed at his own soft-hearted heart. However, there were many things that logic did not dictate how one should act. Humans always had 7 emotions and 6 desires. Furthermore, as a cultivator, one should be dancing on the edge of a blade and roaming everywhere. If one doesn't even have the courage to challenge, how can one continue on this path? Looking towards grandmother in Peru, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he smiled and said, "I'll have to trouble grandmother and sect leader to wait here patiently." Grandmother nodded and said softly, "Be careful." Peru said seriously, "Don't try to be brave when you encounter danger. It doesn't matter if you fail, but don't lose your life." "All right," Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Waving his right hand, he instantly soared into the air and flew away like a sharp arrow. Whoosh! Lin Feng was as fast as the wind. The wind pressure in front of him grew stronger and stronger, and Lin Feng's speed gradually decreased. A journey of 100,000 miles seemed very far, but to a cultivator, it was a distance that could be covered in the blink of an eye. The first half of the journey of 50,000 miles was very easy. Although the wind pressure was terrifying, with Lin Feng's speed, he could still easily resist it. And as he got closer and closer to the wind valley, the wind became more and more terrifying, extremely shocking. Even a star sea level cultivator might not be able to resist it. It's indeed not simple. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He had already mentally prepared himself. The wild wind of the Wind Valley was able to keep a powerful cultivator like grandmother at the door. One could only imagine. No wonder grandmother couldn't take it. To enter the Wind Valley, not only does one need to be strong enough, one also needs to have the endurance of one's body. Lin Feng nodded and sped away. His current speed was only 1/10 of his full speed, but even so, he was still approaching the Wind Valley at an extremely fast speed. Although my body might not be considered strong, at least it's hard to resist. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His current body was comparable to a Star Sea level 7th level war god. More importantly, after fusing with the Phoenix blood, his body's recovery ability was quite shocking. His physical strength was also inexhaustible, because his recovery speed far surpassed his consumption speed. 10,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 2,000 miles. The distance was constantly shrinking. Lin Feng was almost unable to open his eyes. The intensity of the storm was far beyond his imagination. Even the connection of his life spirit was cut off. His speed, from 1/10 to 100th, then to 1,000th. He was getting closer and closer to the Wind Valley, until, it's there. Hazily, Lin Feng could vaguely see a blurry shadow 1,000 meters away. There was a cluster of mountain ranges, forming a unique structure. The Wind Valley was covered by a thick fog, as if it was covered by clouds. The wild wind blew continuously. Go! Lin Feng gritted his teeth, his eyes shining. The more he stopped, the more time he wasted and the more he consumed. If he wanted to enter the Wind Valley, he had to do it in one go. Whoosh! He sped away. The scene in front of him became clearer and clearer. The wild wind seemed to want to blow his entire body into pieces. When the power of nature reached a certain level, it would also become an extremely frightening attack, threatening one's life. Don't try to stop me. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. As he sped away madly, he felt a sharp pain in his body. It felt as if countless Star Sea level experts were attacking him at the same time. However, his body was shockingly resilient, constantly recovering and resisting the wild wind. He was getting closer and closer. At this moment, Lin Feng realized that it was difficult for him to take another step forward. The wind pressure had already reached a terrifying level. Lin Feng had a feeling that if he continued to move forward, even if he didn't die, he would at least be seriously injured. Because that had already exceeded the limits of his strength. But Qi. Lin Feng's expression was somewhat sinister as he frantically unsheathed the nightmare demon spear. The wild flame instantly condensed, and a shocking amount of energy wrapped around his body, forming a milky white color. The nightmare demon spear spiraled up like a long whip. In a split second, a buzzing sound rang out like a rattlesnake. It became louder and more terrifying. A wild wind passed from the tail of the nightmare demon spear to the body of the spear, causing the nightmare demon spear to tremble violently. And at this moment, go! Lin Feng suddenly shouted. Like a flood dragon emerging from the sea, 9 flood dragons frantically attacked. The wild power was accompanied by a strong storm, breaking through everything in front of him. The power returned to its source. Storm against storm. Lin Feng's body seemed to have become one with the nightmare demon spear. Following the explosion of the spear, Lin Feng's entire body shot out like a cannonball, as fast as a meteor and lightning. The wild wind from the wind valley was split apart by the strong spear aura. As if riding the wind and breaking the waves, he continued forward. In front of him, the fog became thicker and thicker, clearer and clearer. And Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. Now, Lin Feng tightened his grip on the nightmare demon spear. In a split second, a suction force was felt. No, it was because there was no resistance from the wild wind. His body followed the inertia and entered. Lin Feng was like a meteor penetrating the obstruction of the wind valley. Finally, he entered. Bang! It was as if he had penetrated a layer of film. A familiar feeling filled his heart. Swish! Lin Feng forcefully stopped his body, stopping the inertia, and looked at his surroundings in surprise. This was a land of vegetation. It was no different from an ordinary valley. Green grass and trees grew vigorously, and extremely dense spiritual qi filled the air. Compared to the land of spiritual energy in the chaotic swamp, the spiritual energy here was not considered dense. However, compared to the Green Smoke City and the Colored Jade Sect, it was much denser. The most important thing was this place was completely different from the outside world. There was no wild wind whistling. Not even the slightest sound of the wind could be heard. This wind valley was rather strange. What Grandma said was true. The spiritual energy of the Colored Jade Sect should have come from here. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. However, for some unknown reason, the spiritual energy could no longer exit and was sealed in here. And this was the reason why he had entered the wind valley. This strange wind valley. Let's take a look around first. Regardless of whether it is the wild wind or the spiritual energy, the answer must be here. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, appearing extremely cautious. After exploring so many places, he was very clear in his heart that any existence. There must be a reason. Walking forward slowly, Lin Feng's eyes were bright. No wonder the wind is so strong outside, but there is no wind at all here. Lin Feng thought to himself. At this moment, he completely understood, because he was in the center of the wind source. The swirling air currents danced as if they were still. They seemed to be motionless, but it was as if they were in a whirlpool, affected by the forces in all directions, maintaining a state of balance. The most obvious thing was that he could not sense the power of his life spirit at all, as if he had entered a chaotic space. This is interesting. Lin Feng's expression turned serious. Just as he was walking and looking around cautiously, suddenly, a change occurred. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.